Hello, everybody. I want to say a couple things before we actually get into this. Number one, subs are on, but alerts and all that stuff are off. I will discourage you from subscribing, by the way. I saw some comments after I made the tweet from people saying things like it was weird that, I would be publicizing a stream or something like that. And I just want to get out ahead of it that I promise you this is not some elaborate revenue making plan. So, and yes, by the way, you are free to laugh. Everybody processes grief in different ways. Some people make inappropriate comments. Some people cry a lot. Some people get angry. The stages of grief are, they vary, right? And I want to tell you that it's okay to laugh, especially through tragedy. Humor has got me through a lot of the last week. Let me tell you that much. I've been drinking a lot of water and spending a lot of time with friends. And it's been a hard fucking week, man. It's been the hardest week of my life. So I want to tell all of you that I probably will cry. I'm a very ugly crier, uglier than usual. I'm warning you in advance. Not that I think that I am the pinnacle of human attraction to begin with, but when I cry, it's really not. You don't want to see it. I strategically wore a turtleneck to mop up the tears should I need them. Almost like a neck and face beard bib. So, I want to say before we really get underway that I am not a crier. You can ask my parents. I do not cry at all. I don't. I think in my adult years, I've probably cried at the passing of one or two members of my family or family friends and some animals that have obviously passed away. But then it's usually like I'll cry for a day and then I'll move on. It probably cried more in the last 5 days than I have in my whole life combined, except when I was a baby, because I'm assuming like most babies, which by the way, babies are annoying. Like most babies, I probably cried all the time. But anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody. And I want to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I had to be the one to bring this news to you. I'm sorry that this news happened at all in the first place. I tweet a lot of very stupid things all the time, and I'm sure many of you see the shit that I share on Twitter and go, why the hell did he hit send? And I tweet that stuff gladly. I have never wanted to not send a tweet more than the one that I had to send in the middle of the week. So, probably good advice moving forward for some of the stuff that I send on Twitter, but a lesson that will not be learned, I'm certain. And I hate that I had to be the one to do it as well. I get through grief in two ways. The two ways that I handle grief are I keep myself busy, finding ways to progress or move forward or whatever, and helping other people with their grief. When my two dogs passed away, our one dog passed away almost a year ago to the day that Michael did. And then our other dog passed away a month ago. I got through it a lot better knowing that I was there to help my mom and my dad. That's how I get through it. I get through it by helping other people because I can solve my own grief. I can get over that just fine. I can square it away if I need to go to grief counseling, if I need to talk to friends. I know I have those resources there. I am extremely fortunate to not have to worry about the timing or the cost of therapy. And I am extremely fortunate to have a very large group of friends who will do anything to help me. I know other people aren't. So if I can help them, then that helps me a lot, because while they're going through things, I'm going through it as well. And it helps me to know that I'm making progress in something, whether it be my own, whether it be my own grief, my own trauma, and also helping somebody else kind of shoulder that weight. So it has been absolutely horrible, on top of the absolute wallop that the news was on Tuesday. It has been horrible to see thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people in pain, and I can't do anything about it. Like it is indescribably hard. So, where to begin? I suspect probably talking about the sequence of events that led to this coming about. Before we get there, I once again want to say that I thank you very much for all the people. I can see subs flooding in. I want to strongly discourage you from spending your money here today. Kix's parents have talked about how if you want to honor him, don't subscribe to me on Twitch. They did not say that. There was nowhere in their message where they're like, sub to Interro. That's how we want you to remember him. And I want to be very clear about this. that is not what they want, and that is not what I want. What they did say was, please donate to a local food bank or to a mental health initiative if you so choose. As some of you might know, Kix and I only think we posted about it once, but Kix and I used to jointly donate to food banks. It was something that I had brought up originally to him because I said, once we started to make more money in casting, I said I wanted to start giving that money back. Not to get political, but you know my politics. You know that I don't want to hoard all of my wealth. You know that, and Kix was exactly the same. Kix and I shared a lot of commonalities with the way that we saw the world and the way that we saw politics. It's just Kix never wanted to talk about it for X, Y, and Z. But if you gave Kix even a couple ounces of alcohol, he turned into Aristotle on stream. And he would start waxing political more than I think I ever did. So who's to say that he wasn't political? Kix and I would donate to food banks and we would match each other's contributions. I remember I actually it was right after filming 6 on 6. I had neglected my blood sugar levels and I was worried that I was going into hypoglycemia. So I went to the emergency room where they didn't prioritize me and I sat there for, 2 hours. And while I was there, Michael and I were talking and he had just donated to a food bank and I matched it. It was one of many times where I would donate in Toronto. The two options here, the Daily Bread Food Bank and Food Share. They're both excellent. Kix was very passionate about helping those who needed help the most and, lifting up those who needed the help. And I think if you read the statement from his family, you'll see why. The apple didn't fall very far from the tree on that one. So if you want to, I appreciate it. I really do. But I don't want your money today. I don't want it most days, but I definitely don't want it today. I want you, if you want to spend that money, a sub is $5. It might not seem like a lot, but if 100 of you donate $5 to your local food bank, that can make a massive difference. And, I strongly, strongly encourage you to do that instead. Whether it be in his name, whether it be anonymously, etc. So I want to get that out of the way because, like I see, it makes me uncomfortable to accept your money on today, on of all days. I also want you to know that you in chat, you assholes, have almost made me cry already, and it's been 10 minutes because you are all posting beautiful things, and I am angry at all of you for being so nice. So there might be times where I close chat. but I want it to be entirely clear as well that spam away, spam his emotes, spam memories, spam the copy pasta, everything that you want. The chat is yours today, but don't be a dickhead. Don't make the mods have to work any harder than they already do. So, so where to start? I guess I'll start with the timeline of events. On Monday afternoon, if my memory serves me correctly, and since Tuesday, every single day has been one long day. So I don't have the sharpest memory of things. But on Monday, I believe it was National Coming Out Day, and I made an Instagram post basically talking about it. And as such, when those types of things happen, and when I usually post stories like that, it's not unusual for me to get a bunch of message requests on Instagram, either from people, you know, saying, oh, this is great, thanks for doing this, or people being like, yeah, you're a beta soy boy, whatever, blah, 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 whatever things they say to me. I don't know. Doesn't bother me. So I go to bed and I wake up on Tuesday morning. And when I wake up on Tuesday morning, I've got a couple message requests, and usually I'll just kind of scan through them and see, like, is there anything like worth responding to? Like, and there's one message that, well, it struck me as very odd. And there was a message request that was sent at 2:30 a.m. my time Tuesday morning, which would have been 11:30 p.m. Pacific time in California. And it said, hey, Parker, I don't really know how to tell you this, but your friend Michael died. I was the first person at the crash. I was the first person to call 911. I'm really sorry. I know that this is probably shocking. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I got that at 2:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning, which would have been 11:30 in California. Now, I was asleep. And I saw that message, and I thought it was a joke. It's not unusual for me to get stupid DMs. I'm sure this probably doesn't shock you. I've had people message me telling me that, you know, Pengu had retired. This was before Pengu had actually retired. People telling me that Bolo had been caught cheating. You know, just random stupid things that they're just lies. They're just done for attention, right? But I don't know what it was about this message, but it just like it hit in a different way. So I responded to it, and I just said, it's really fucked up that you would joke about this kind of thing. This isn't something to joke about. And he responded immediately, and he goes, I'm not joking. I'm not fucking with you. You know, I was there. I didn't see it. I know that it's a lot to take in. I'm really sorry, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have it. And there was something about that response that just, it didn't sit right with me. Because if somebody's going to troll you or fuck with you that way, that's not the level of sincerity and earnestness that you usually receive. So I'm still thinking this guy's joking. So I just said, you know, okay, fine, you know, prove it. And over the span of the next hour or so, he sends me way too much stuff that is way too specific to be a joke. So, of course, the first thing I do is I try calling Michael. It's probably about 10 a.m. on my time, so it's about 7 a.m. on his time. And he's still awake. He's still answering me. So he sent this message at 11:30 his time, and at 7 a.m. he's answering me immediately. So the first thing I do is I try calling Kix. Doesn't pick up. Now, if it's 7 a.m. for the kid on the West Coast, it's also 7 a.m. for Michael, and we all know, Kix, that the only chance that Michael's awake at 7 a.m. is if for some reason he streamed for fucking 20 hours and not gone to bed because he did not believe in sleep schedules. So it's not unusual that he's not picking up because it is 7 a.m. for him. So I try calling him and I send him a bunch of messages. I look on Discord. He's online on Discord. which I always thought was unusual because he usually turned his computer off before he went to bed. But whatever, no problem. So I shoot him a message on Discord. I shoot him a message on WhatsApp. I call him on WhatsApp. I call him on his regular phone. And just the information that this kid was giving me was way too specific that it felt like there was a pit in the middle of my stomach. Now, my family and I were set to drive up to Northern Ontario that day as like a getaway because we wanted to go up and we wanted to see the fall colors and just like kind of get out. Completely unrelated to the thing with Kix. So I'm driving for about an hour and so. Meanwhile, I'm getting messages from this kid still, like things he's remembering, like specifics to try and like, he's like, I'm not lying to you. Let me, let me tell you how this is true, blah, blah, blah. We pull over to make a quick rest stop and I look up online and I said, well, there must be a police report. He goes, yeah, there is. I find it. And it's the same one that a lot of you shared, talking about a single vehicular collision. The person was pronounced deceased on site. Oh my God, that could be anybody. That could be anybody. We drive about another hour and we pull over because I have to go to the bathroom and get a coffee. And as I'm literally walking to the bathroom, I get a Twitter DM that is from his stepdad. And it says, hey, Parker, it's Kix's stepdad or Michael's stepdad. Please call me immediately. And I knew. I saw that message and I knew. It wasn't a joke. So before I called him, I told my parents because they were both with me. And I said, I think Kix died. I have to call his dad. And they thought I don't know. I literally just like walked away. Hi, parents. This happened. Okay, goodbye. They were probably shocked and didn't know what was happening. And then I walked away and I called his dad. And I can't imagine what it's like to have to bury your child. And I can't imagine the grief that they were going through. And despite that, the first thing that he said was, do you currently have people around to support you? I want to make sure that what I'm about to say isn't said to you alone. And I'm like, no fucking way. No fucking way the first thing you're saying to me is caring about my well-being. At that point, when I answered the phone, or they answered the phone, I knew what was coming already because of the message I'd received. I knew that I was prepared for it, obviously. And they were on speakerphone. His stepdad and his mom were there. And we talked, and it's most of the conversation's a blur. They obviously were in disbelief. They probably still are. I still am. I'm sure many of you are. And his stepdad said the same thing that I said. I kind of process things by getting through it. I want to just start doing stuff. And they said, we don't really think it would be appropriate for anybody but you to be the one to kind of share this news. And that was so touching. A lot of you know that I used to do really annoying tweets where I would share Rainbow Six news when Rainbow Six should be sharing it or ESL should be sharing it. But, maybe ESL didn't always communicate the best, so I'd sometimes tweet it out. And I'm sure many of you thought that it was annoying that I took it upon myself to share that news, and maybe it was annoying. This was one piece of news that I did not want to share. I don't know. It's, I didn't want to be the one to have to do this. So, of course, at that point, the next steps are, working with his family to make sure that the right information is getting out. The general plan was, I said, okay, well, first things first, we have to cast tomorrow. Well, we did have to cast tomorrow. And I said, you know, we're going to have to sort that out ASAP. And they said, okay, well, you know, if you could go ahead and talk to, they're like, we don't really have any means to talk to your bosses. They're like, we don't have contact information for them. And I was like, I can do it. I was like, you know what? I hate to say the word, I will happily do it, because I think that's terrible given the circumstances. Nothing is happy right now. Happiness does not exist. Happiness is canceled. Like a Netflix comedian, happiness got canceled. That's a joke. You're welcome to laugh. Or don't. It wasn't a very funny joke. I don't care. You do whatever you want. And I said, you know, I'll get in touch with as many people as I can, but I'll also keep it quiet. And they said, okay. And, you know, we were in constant contact for most of the day. Talked to CSA, talked to Ubisoft, talked to Faceit. I held it together pretty well for most of the day, because it didn't feel real. It didn't feel real, and I had shit to do. There was stuff to be done. You know, I could get through it later. The worst part about this was that we'd driven 2 hours north, so we had to turn around and drive 2 hours south again, because that's how travel works as far as I'm aware. And you know, I was okay. You know, I was okay through most of it. Got through the talk with our producer at Faceit. I choked up a few times, but nothing bad. Got through the call with CSA. They were in awful shape. I know that they're just our agents, but the reason why we went with CSA was because they cared, and it hit them real hard. So CSA said they would work with Faceit to figure out what to do about scheduling. I told them that I probably wasn't good to cast in, you know, in 24 hours, understandably. Ubisoft found out through Faceit. And I told a couple people here or there, friends of his in Ubisoft. I hadn't told the other casters at this point. I know this part's going to make me cry, so I'm dreading talking about it. Kix didn't get along well with everybody, as some of you may know. I believe the term that I would use to describe Kix more often than not was sometimes Kix was a real son of a bitch. And I think many of you got to see that in his stream, and it was part of his charm. I was one of his closest friends, and there were still days where I had to wonder if he secretly hated my fucking guts. So it was always so hard to read him. But the one person that I always knew he liked was Bartosz. So for those of you that don't know who Bartosz is, he ran the ESL Rainbow Six account. If you saw a funny meme over the last couple years from the ESL account, it was probably him. He was in Warsaw when we were in Katowice, and we really didn't know him all that well, but we got to meet him a couple times, and we were always blown away with how nice he was. And there were few occasions where I would hear Kix go out of his way to like somebody. Most of the time, and this might surprise none of you, most of the time, when I would say to Kix, oh, so-and-so, he would say this. He'd go, who? And I'd say, he or she works for Ubisoft. He or she works for Faceit. He or she works for ESL. They're a player on this team. Michael, you casted them. And he'd always do this. He'd go, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, they're cool. I remember somebody donated like $1,000 to Kix for him to build his computer. And he gets into a game on stream with this guy randomly. And the guy's like, oh my God, Kix, like, I donated $1,000 so you could build your computer. I'm such a huge fan, blah, blah. And Kix's response was like, oh, cool. Michael, please learn to talk to people. This guy just donated $1,000 and all you're like is like, oh, cool. And if I remember correctly, the whole chat was like, Michael, say thank you. All of you are like spamming it because all of you have manners. They're all spamming like, Michael, say thank you. Michael, say thank you. What are you doing? Say thank you. And then he reads chat and he's like, oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And the guy's like, yeah, no problem. But you could tell that he was like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And it's like, that's a question we all asked at some point, right? So not only did he remember who Bartosz was, but he liked him and he would bring him up on his own for no reason other than the fact that they were friends. And I know that a lot of you here work jobs, and I know that a lot of you here have colleagues that you spend a ton of time with. You know, the work week is made in such a way that you often see your coworkers more than your family and your friends. And yet, isn't it weird that most of the time our coworkers are not always our closest friends? Because I firmly believe we compartmentalize, we separate work from play. There are few instances in my life where somebody has transcended the workplace to friendship line. They have moved categories. And I know for Kix, it was the same way. Kix was notoriously hard to be friends with, you know, a lot of you will know that. And for those of you that are in here that are friends with him, you know that it's who he was. And that's fine. That was part of his charm. But at the same time, somebody like Bartosz transcended that. And that's when I lost it. Because up until that point, everybody I'd told yes was friends with Kix. But nobody meant the same to him that Bartosz did. And I just fucking lost it. And I was just... He messaged me because he works for Faceit. And he's like, are you okay? I heard that something happened. But he didn't say what, and they didn't tell him what. By the way, thank you, Faceit, for not telling him. He's like, I heard something happened. Are you okay? And I just called him and I was like, not really. And here's why. And we literally just sat in a Discord call for an hour. I don't even think half of what I said were words. We just sobbed, bawled. We just bawled. The next person I called was Milos right after that. It was like 1:30. And not that any other talent was less or more of his friend, but Milos, Kix, and I, and Emzo to a certain extent, though Emzo didn't often come out with us. Emzo wasn't as keen to go out. But we were the four, right? Like Emzo, Milos, Kix, and I, like we held it down in Poland. And the first real coworker I wanted to tell was Milos. And God, that one was hard too. He was asleep. It was like 1:30. And he's like, is it urgent? And I was like, I think you could make an argument that it was semi-urgent. And Milos got up and he went out and I told him. And later that evening, I had to tell all of the casters as well. They'd already been given a heads up that something was going on because in the production chat of Faceit, they'd posted that we were moving the broadcast. Ubisoft decided that moving the broadcast was the right move, and I agreed with that. I was of two minds. I honestly believe that while he'd be proud of us, Kix would be so fucking annoyed with how much attention we're giving him. I can just see him sitting at his computer chair being like, oh my God, just fucking get on with it. Stop being sad. I'm fine. Just go on with your lives. And I can see it, and I can hear it. I can just hear him saying it. And I was of two minds where I thought that in a way that the play day should still go on as just a means of getting over it. But then I realized that no, they were making the right call. So Ubisoft decided to push the play day, and they coordinated with Faceit on that. And Faceit had posted in production that it was, I don't remember how, it was like an emergency or something like that, and that we're moving the play day. And I had messaged, we have a talent group from the Mexico Major. So it's all the NAL talent except for Veli, but Veli I contacted obviously on his own. And I just posted in the group saying, you know, I want to have a call. I lied and I said it was just about like NAL scheduling. It didn't allude to it. Jacob was like, is everything all right? And I was like, yep. I lied. Don't snitch. And it was at like 1 a.m. That I talked to all of them. And it was everybody. We waited until Veli was done LCQ because I didn't want to break the news while he was in the middle of hosting. Veli was working the desk for Valor and LCQ, and I didn't want to, as much as I wanted to just get it off my chest and just move on, I didn't want to tell him while he was still working. So I waited until he was done. And yeah, I got everybody in a call, and I basically, and you know, Jacob was like, yeah, we knew something was coming because, you know, they tipped us off with moving the schedule. And I was like, there is absolutely zero way you can prepare yourself for what I'm about to tell you. And it was hard, and I struggled to get through it. And you know, you can always fucking tell when somebody gets sad because they all just start fucking muting. I'm sitting in a call and I see everybody's just like not muted. Then all of a sudden, as I'm telling the story, Blue mutes, and then Veli mutes, and then Stokes mutes, and then Jacob mutes. And I'm like, I know you're crying. You can't hide it from me. I fucking know it. I know you're crying. You're giving yourself away. And we sat in that group for like 3 hours, and we just talked and we just shared stories. You know, for people like Jacob and Jesse, they barely knew him, right? Like, they barely knew who he was. Blue, Stokes, and Veli were with him in Poland, but for people like Emzo, Milos, and I, and even as much as I hate to say it, even Flynn. For those of you, by the way, that think that I'm ragging on Flynn too much, when I made the announcement post, I care and think so highly of Flynn that he was the person that I called while I was making the post. So I know I make fun of him a lot, but, and I totally mean it, by the way. I totally mean every mean thing I say about him, but yeah, we sat there and we just talked and we just shared stories and we took turns. You know, it was sorrow, and it was just hurt, and I have spent the last like X amount of days like grieving and just missing a friend, you know. He wasn't a friend when we first started talking, right? I didn't know him. I didn't know him at all. And like I said, he was kind of a son of a bitch. He was prickly, and, you know, he wasn't always easy to work with, and he wasn't always easy to get along with. And he, you know, but over time, I don't know, I don't want to say like we wore him down, because I feel like if you spend enough time in the presence of Milos and I, it will turn you into a soy boy no matter what. So sorry about that, I guess, but he became, you know, a bit more, I don't know, personable. And it's worth noting that you all watched his streams a lot. He was a lot of things on stream. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes tired, but he was always honest. So honest that if you recall, he got himself into a heaping fucking ton of trouble because the first day that I landed in Poland and he knew that he'd never have to cast with his current caster at the time, he then decided to be brutally honest about his then co-caster on stream. To which both Milos and I had to sit him down and be like, here's why you can't do that. Here's why you can't just tell 2,000 people on your stream why you hate the person that you're working with. And I just remember I woke up from a message from Milos being like, have you seen Kix's clip? And I said, that's like, if you're saying Kix's clip, it means that there's only one, and there's a level of infamy there where I'm going to immediately understand which one he's talking about. And I just looked at it and I was like, oh no, I'm jet lagged. I'm in a hotel room in Poland, which, by the way, I still haven't figured out how to work the lights, because in European hotels, you have to put the key card in to turn on the lights. And I didn't know that because I'd never been to Europe before. So I thought the lights in my room were broken. So I just went to bed. So I wake up in this dark room thinking I have no fucking power. And I'm just like, I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, what clip? We had to sit Michael down and he's like, why can't I? Why? I was just honest. And I was like, yeah, Michael, you can be honest about a lot of things. You just don't say that stuff out loud. Anyway, there are lots of hotels like that, by the way, chat. Brazil has both the hotels we stayed at in Brazil, both Rio and Sao Paulo, did the same thing. When you walk in, you have to take the key card they used to open the door. You have to put it into this little thing. And then that's when like all the power comes on. It's usually done by hotels as like an energy conservation thing, because so many people just like literally leave their hotel room and they'll leave all the lights on, they'll leave the AC blasting, and it just kills energy, right? It just absolutely just rips through power. So they do it so that unless the key card is in the door, then everything turns off, which, let me tell you, in Brazil fucking stinks, because then you get to your hotel room in Brazil after a long day and you open the door and it's like 41 degrees Celsius because the AC hasn't been on all day. You're walking through the hotel and it's like, you get to your room and you're like, oh, time to relax. Put the key card in, you're like, can't wait for this to finally be room temperature in 2 days. God, Brazil is so fucking hot. How do you people live in a place that hot? Honest question. How do people live in hot countries? Anyway, I don't get it. Brazil's a beautiful country, amazing country, and I'm bummed that we haven't been back there since. But oh my God, it's hot. I don't understand how you do it. Come to Brazil. Yeah, don't worry. He was always honest. Always, always, always honest. And the one thing that he was most honest about was his mental health. For those of you that watched his stream and his streams shortly after he stopped playing and he started casting, you know that those were dark days. You knew that he was not doing well. The amount of people who've shared stories with me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Discord, scrolling through his Discord server has a channel dedicated to stories so people can vent and share them. And the amount of people saying, you know, like I'd ask him how he was and he would say like, you know, oh, I'm not well. Oh, I'm depressed. He was always so honest about who he was. And there were periods of time where Milos and I genuinely did not know if he was going to make it out of that month or if he was going to make it to the end of the year. And he did. He got through it. You know, he absolutely got through it. And there was a lot that, you know, you all saw, and it's just, he wouldn't sleep. He wanted to play so badly. And it was hard to cast with him because of that at the beginning. It was easy to cast with him, but it was hard to cast with him because I knew how badly he wanted to play. And for those of you that don't know, because I'm not sure how many, I've told it on stream before, but I don't expect you to know the intimacies of all of my life or the stories I tell. He was going to quit casting sometime before the Paris Major. The Paris Major was what we honestly believed would be our last event working together. He was going to accept a job working for an esports org in a coaching / management role. And he was semi-hoping that it would be a ticket to possibly get back into competing. And things ultimately didn't end up working out. I supported him 100%, by the way. We went on a walk in Poland, and I was like, you've been really weird. I want to know what's going on. And he just opened up about it. And he's like, you know, there's an offer that's been presented. I'm thinking about considering it. I miss competing. I miss the game. And as fun as it is casting, I want to be a player. And I said, do it. It's kind of dawning on me that I think that was the hardest conversation we'd ever had. And I said, do it. I said, if it'll make you happier, if, you know, if it'll, you know, I don't know. It's just go for it, man. I was like, I'll find someone. And he'd said, are you going to stay casting? And I said, yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I like it. And he goes, I think you should find somebody amazing and keep going. And I like to think that he'd probably still give that same advice today. And so we casted the Paris Major pretty much under the assumption that would be the last time that we would work together. If any of you go back and watch the Paris Major, number one, don't. It was one of our worst events in terms of like matches. Most of the matches stunk. Number two, Kix and I were terrible. All of our casts were fucking garbage. Almost every single match that he and I casted the Paris Major was absolutely fucking terrible. And I mean, it didn't help that almost all the matches were absolutely fucking terrible as well. But yeah, Milos, the only major final that Milos has casted, and he goes, and I quote, fucking awesome to cast a major final with those shit matches, LMAO. Sorry, Milos. Thanks for casting it for us. We appreciate it. The Paris Major was like, I think honestly, the Paris Major is our worst event in terms of like caliber of matches. But if you go back and you listen to any of the casting that Kix and I did, it doesn't sound good. It sounds lazy, and you know, it sounds like we have no spirit, and it sounds like we don't care. And no offense, we didn't really care. I was going through the motions, you know, he thought he was done. So we were just kind of like, if a good match shows up, we'll cast it. And then no good matches showed up. So it's not like we're going to give you great casting for a terrible game. So it was one of those things where we thought Paris was it. And, you know, he went around and he talked to a bunch of people at the Paris Major, basically saying, you know, like, I'm thinking about coming back. I'm thinking about getting into coaching or doing, you know, general managing or even playing. And then truthfully, I don't know what changed his mind. But we're sitting at the desk. We're sitting at the desk in Poland, and it was for one of the first broadcasts of the season in September or October. I think it was September after the Paris Major. This was 2018. And he just walks in one day. We got separate Ubers there. I can't remember the circumstances, but we Ubered separately to the office. I think he was doing something, or he was late or something. We got to the office separately, and he just walks in and he just sits down next to me and he goes, "So I'm not going to take the job." And I just had the stupidest smile on my face. And I don't really know what changed it. He kind of gave me some vague, like, it's just like, it doesn't sound like what I thought it would be, was basically what he gave it as an explanation. But I never really got an answer as to why he said no. It wasn't because of me. I encouraged him to take it every step of the way. He was going to move back to North America. He was going to be close to his family. He talked at length about how he hadn't seen his family in like a year or 2 or 2 years or 3 years or something like that. He's like, I can eat a real American burger again. I can be close to family. I'm not going to be awake in the middle of the night. And it was just like, he's like, there, I can get health insurance. I can start saving. Like I can, the salary is really good. Like, and I was like, do it. As much as I wanted to keep casting with him, at that point already, I'd only known him since the summer of 2017. This is only about a year later. At that point, it was less about him as a coworker and more about him as a friend. And I knew that no matter what he did, we'd still stay in touch because he's one of those people that transcended being a coworker. And he just said, "I'm in a state of casting." And I just had this stupid smile on my face and I didn't even say anything. And he just looks at me and he goes, "Are you happy?" But he said it in his monotone, no expression. He just looks at me and he just goes, "Are you happy?" And I was like, "Yep." And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to go get ready." And then he gets up and he goes and he starts ironing his shirt for the show. And y'all are sharing the exact fucking face he made. That's the exact face that he made. And that was it. And I just said to him, I was like, "We've got work to do." I was like, "I want to be the best that we can possibly be. I want to boot camp casting. I want to go over things to say. I want to go over things not to say. I want to go over how we pass off. I want to go over time management, all of this stuff." And he goes, "I want that too." And that I feel like was when we really started to like take off. And over time, I felt that it became from a friendship, it became more of a relationship of family. I've never had a sibling. I've had people in my life who I've considered to be like my siblings. I have, cousins, I have friends who I consider to be like family. But I was wrong. I was wrong because the relationship that I have with them is different. But it's not that same feeling that I had with Michael. Michael very much felt like my younger brother. I didn't realize how much I talked to him until I went through our Discord messages, and I went through our Instagram messages, and I went through our WhatsApp messages. I talked to him almost every single day for 4.5 years, going back to like the spring of 2017, the summer of 2017. About everything. Everything. Every single big decision that he made in his life and every single big decision that I made in my life, we talked about it. And it just doesn't dawn on you. It doesn't dawn on you. Like I've been writing music. He was always one of the first people I'd send music to, even though he's deaf in one ear, right? The way that we mix our music, we put two guitars in our songs, and one guitar is on one ear and one guitar is on the other ear. My guitar was on his deaf ear, and I would always joke because I'd be like, I know you can't really hear my guitar part. So he'd put on his headphones, listen to our music, and he'd hear everything except for my guitar. That's why he liked it. Fuck you. Mean. So, and he would give me like very thorough feedback. He showed it to his mom. His mom gave me feedback through him. You know? And it's just, it hasn't, there's so many more things that I'd wanted to like ask him and share with him. And I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. You know? I won't be able to. And it sucks, you know? And I've spent so much time grieving for a friend that it hasn't even really dawned on me that Kixstar doesn't exist anymore. That it's that I'm mourning a friend. You know, I haven't really been able to like process that side of it yet. I haven't thought about it, and it's one of those things where I've been focusing on the tragedy and the grief and the trauma and how unfair it is and how cruel it is. And I haven't even thought about like the stupid little jokes we'd make. Him just not getting references because he lived under a rock. Like whether I choose to keep casting, whether I quit, whether I find somebody new to work with, you know, whether I escape to the Himalayas and become a monk, I don't know. But I mean, I won't be able to replace that banter the same way. Yeah, you know what? I could probably find somebody to work with. Is it going to be the same? Who knows? But it won't be the same in that way. It's irreplaceable. And, you know, like, I got tripped up the other day because the one thing that we always used to say was, I would say, you know, you're technically correct. And then he would jump in and go, which of course, as we know, is the best kind of correct. And I was talking to a friend a day or two ago, and he said, you're technically correct. And I just wanted to respond with that. So it's been really hard. And the worst part right now, is that there are thousands of hours of him and I interacting together and talking and casting and goofing off. And they're everywhere. And it's beautiful. And I don't want you to think that you shouldn't be sharing it, because you should. it has made it so much harder seeing all these videos being shared. And a lot of you have changed your profile pictures to him, which I think is just the cutest thing. But holy fuck, I am so tired of seeing him everywhere. It's so hard. And I don't want you to not, by the way. I want you to change your profile pictures to him if it makes you feel better. But I just like, I keep seeing people liking it. That's his picture. And I'm like, why is Kix? Oh, it's not him. You know, like, God damn it. So it's one of those things where I can't watch casts of us. I've tried. I wanted to see if it would make things better, and oh, it did not. Oh, let me tell you, it made things so much fucking worse. I've tried watching casts of him and I. I've tried watching stupid little videos and memes that people have been sharing, and it touches me in ways that I didn't think was possible. But I understand now it's hard, but it will get so much better, and maybe not so much better, but it'll get better over time. But it sucks now. But so many people, I've read comments that have said, you know, we're never going to hear his voice again. And that's not true. Whenever you're sad and you miss him, there are thousands of hours available where you can watch him. So you know what the stupidest thing that I've cried at so far is, you know, that dumb fucking picture where it's like him looking at me and then somebody photoshopped a picture of me saying, "You've heard of Interro bang? Well, get ready for the Interro pound," and then me making a face at him. That is the dumbest thing that I've cried at so far. I saw it and I just started laughing, and then the laugh just slowly turned into crying. And I was like, this is so fucked up. Like, I just like, God, I was like, why is that the thing that makes me sad? It's tough. And I will say this, I have lost a lot of family and some friends, in my life. Nobody this close. Most of the people who've passed have been like second cousins, great uncles, people that I knew from a distance, but nobody that I've ever been anywhere near this close to. Outside of maybe my parents, I don't know if there's anybody, maybe Jim Brimstone, who, by the way, has been unbelievable over the last 4 days. I don't think, maybe other than him, I don't think there's anybody over the last 4.5 years that I've spoken to more than Kix. And I'm gonna miss that. Like I said, I've been so busy grieving somebody who I spoke to as a friend, even if we weren't casters anymore, even if he'd quit, we still talked every day. And it's like I said, I felt like a big brother. You know, I'm having to help him through things that I didn't ever expect to do, like what I would imagine a big brother tells a younger sibling. Right? And it's just, it sucks. It's like a hollowness. I've been keeping busy the last couple days. You know, I've been going out, I've been seeing friends. You know, I've been trying to keep my mind occupied. But there's this hollow feeling And I don't want to sound emo, but it's like, you know, like nothing matters. It's like, why be happy when I'm so sad? And I'm sure a lot of you are probably feeling the same thing as well. And I started counting the amount of people who messaged me and reached out on Twitter, just on Twitter alone. And it was in the hundreds before I stopped counting. And I didn't even touch Instagram. I didn't touch my Twitter message requests. I didn't touch all of the tagged posts that he was in. I couldn't go any higher. I couldn't do it. There's thousands of you. His tweet about his passing has almost 10,000 quote retweets, let alone the comments, let alone the people who made statements on their own. It's insane. I expected this to hit the community really, really hard. I knew it was coming and I dreaded it. I dreaded it. And I not to make this about me, but I didn't want to be the one to have to be the center of attention there. And I knew that I, to a certain extent, would be by being the one to share that news. And it was on my shoulders to be the one to tell all of you and basically ruin all of your days. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I wish that there was any other news to share. But oh my God, the outpouring of support for his family and the love that you shared to him took me, and I think most people, off guard. He was the top 4 or 5 posts on the Rainbow Six Pro League subreddit, the top 8 posts on the Rainbow Six subreddit, the top post on shitty Rainbow Six. He was the top post on Valorant competitive. He got tributes paid to him from people in League of Legends, Overwatch, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Rocket League, Valorant. People from all over the esports world took time out of their day to pay tribute and to pay thanks to him for that. It was stunning. It just, I knew it was going to be a big day, but I did not expect that. I did not expect that. And I kept reading comment after comment after comment, and I couldn't, so many people that I didn't even know that knew that he existed, and not only did they know, but they cared. I'll miss him so much. Even Lion, when he was released, didn't unite the community like he did. And I think that tells you something. So it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And yeah, he was weird. And yeah, he was a weirdo. He was. And I think it's okay to say that because he called himself weird all the fucking time. We'd make comments about going to like meet somebody at Ubisoft. And he's like, oh, do you want me to come? And I'd be like, why? And he goes, I don't know. What if they don't like me? He goes, it might be just better if you go. And I was like, you know, they're going to have to meet you at some point. And he's like, yeah, but I'm weird. He just casually say shit like that. And you know what? Like, that's what made him who he was. And there were days where when I was working with him, I wanted to strangle him because he would just be so hard to deal with. And I just did not have the energy some days. And it would just be like, ah! I remember one time we met a caster in another game. They were in Poland. Kix, for some reason, hadn't slept, which, I mean, you don't need a reason. You don't need a reason for him to not sleep, right? You all saw the streams where he'd stream until 12:30 and then be like, oh, well, rehearsal's in 15 minutes, so I guess I got to get ready for Pro League. Okay, see you later, everybody, after having streamed for 11 hours before going to cast Pro League for 6 hours. And then I would be there and he'd show up and he'd be like, oh, good, I streamed. And I'd be like, oh, cool, when did you stream? And he's like, just till like an hour ago. And I would just be like, What? You can't do that. And then I'd have to sit there and he would just be like, yeah, so anyway, we got the map bands for you. You know, we haven't seen Chalet in a while. And I'd just be sitting there being like, oh my God, why did you not sleep? There was one time where we met a caster in Poland and they were there for some event that was being filmed at the ESL studios, and he wanted to meet Kix and I. He came up, and it was a night that Kix hadn't slept. And we're shaking hands, and it's just the three of us. We're just standing around like in one of the ESL bays. And we're talking, and he and I are just like having like a normal back and forth, and then Kix is just kind of like, and then he turned and he asked a question to Kix, and I can't remember what he asked. And then Kix was like, yeah. And then Kix starts answering it, and then he like rambles. And then the guy's like, okay, cool. You can tell he's like a little like, what the hell just happened? And then he turns back to me and we keep talking. And then he says something about Poland, and Kix is like, yeah. And then Kix just like goes off on a tangent about like something that is totally and completely unrelated to the topic at hand. And I'll never forget it. He's looking at me. And he turns to Kix, and he looks at Kix, and he makes this face. And then he just turns to me, and he goes, standing right in front of Kix, he goes, is he okay? I'm just standing there being like, that's just who he is, man. And the best part is that anybody who wasn't as tired as Kix would have been like upset by that. They would have been like, why would you say that to my face? But Kix literally just goes, yeah, I didn't sleep. So I'm pretty tired, so I'm probably not making any sense. So, I just like, and for those of you that met him, and for those of you that got to interact with him, he loved you, all of you. Due to a variety of reasons, when he was growing up, he never really had friends. But he'd refer to you, the viewers, as friends. And I think he meant it. He would tell me random stories about viewers that I'd never heard of. He'd tell me stories about their names. He'd talk about them as if they were all pals. And it was, he meant it. He really meant it. You all meant more to him than he probably could tell you, mostly because I don't think he was capable of telling you all how much you meant to him. But I think you all meant more to him than he ever put into words. You know, he'd say, you know, that he'd make comments about like, oh, you know, I'm going to meet up with a friend, or, you know, oh, I'm seeing a friend at this event. And not to be rude, but Milos and I would usually say like, you didn't tell us that you had like a friend there. And he's like, oh, they're just a viewer of mine. And he'd say it so casually and so pure. And he meant it. And you know, it's hard to grow up online, but he did. And he, you know, a lot of you helped him in a lot of ways. He would give these frighteningly strong hugs for somebody as small as he was. Kix was a small guy, small shoulders, pretty small head, which was terrible on camera because I have a slightly bigger head and he has like a slightly smaller head. So I would always, anyway, that's completely besides the point. I was just always self-conscious about it, but he also had massive hands. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but if you look at any photo of Kix, I have normal sized hands. Kix had hands that were almost the same size as mine. And Kix is like 5 inches shorter than me. He had enormous hands. And it's just like he was much stronger than he looked. And he would just give you this hug, and it would just like, it would crush you like in all the right ways. So, and anybody that got a hug from him will tell you the same thing. The first real heart-to-heart that he and I ever really had was at DreamHack Winter. I don't know if she said anything. If Jess is in here, I don't know if she's watching, but this is hitting her really, really hard because she idolized Kix as a caster and she loved Kix as a person. And I remember DreamHack Winter, which will remain one of my favorite events of all time because I spent the entirety of the event pretty much with Michael. We went for dinner before the after party. It was me, Kix, Scrawny, and Launders. For those of you that don't know, Launders Moen is a real life friend of mine. He's always been a good pal of mine. So we went for dinner, the four of us. Scrawny is Launders' duo. They were there casting CSGO. So the four of us went for dinner. And I ordered a Caesar salad, and then there was an option to add shrimp to it. Now, as a North American, when you usually add shrimp, they give you like, what, 6 big shrimp? Yeah, anyway, so they added about probably 40 cocktail shrimp, and it literally looked like I got a plate of shrimp, and it was the grossest salad I've ever eaten, but that's besides the point. So Kix finishes dinner early before us, and he goes up to his room. I can't remember what he was doing. He might have been calling his girlfriend at the time, but anyway, it was just Scrawny, me, and Launder sitting at the table. And then we were going to the after party. And I get to the after party and Kix is already there. And he is fucking wasted. Now, he got drunk a couple times on his stream and you got to see what he was like. He'd be like this, super animated and all over the place. And that's what he was like every time he drank. And I get to the party and he's talking to Jess and Penta at the time. I think he's talking either Hungry or Panics. And he literally sees me and just like runs at me and gives me a hug. And he's like, I've been drinking. And I was like, yep, I can tell. And we talked a bunch and he talked to Jess and he spent most of the time talking to Jess. And then Jess comes up to me and she's like, you need to put him on water and look after him. And I was like, all right. So I forced him to drink water. He still had drink tickets. He'd go up to the bar. He'd sneak out of my line of sight. He'd go up to the bar. He'd try to order something. He'd be holding it in his hand. I walked up to him. I took it out of his hand and I replaced it with water. And I'm like, you're not drinking anymore. Drink water. And he's like, do I have to? And I was like, yes, you have to drink water. He started to get the spins because he drank so fucking much. And I just kept giving him water after water glass after water glass and just kept forcing him to drink water. And afterwards, keep in mind, DreamHack Winter happened about 4 months after the Paris Major, 3 months after the Paris Major. Because Paris Major was end of August. DreamHack Winter was beginning of December, end of November. Can't remember the exact time. So we're still going through our now like, we're still going through like our getting to know each other, like coming back into like a partnership kind of deal. And we sat outside. It was kind of cold. But we sat outside on the patio and we just talked and we just had this long, like hour-long heart-to-heart. And yeah, you know what? Yeah, he was drunk. But we sat outside and we talked. Sam, you were there, by the way, so you would know better than anybody. It was actually the event I met you at. We sat outside and we talked for about an hour. And it was the very first time, you know, at the end of it, I said, you know, I said something about, I can't even remember how it was, but I said, you know, I'll always love you, right? And he's like, love you too. And then he put his head on my shoulder Mostly because I think he was so drunk, not because I thought it was a cute moment, but probably just because he was very fucking tired. But we would routinely say that from that point forward. It was not uncommon for us to tell each other that we loved each other like brothers. Because that's what he was to me. And, you know, I remember he was, the night wasn't even, by the way, this is early. I want to stress that there's still like 2.5 hours left of this after party. This is how fucking torched he got so early. I rolled up to the party at like 10:20 and the party ended at like 2 or whatever. And he's just sauced out of his mind. So there's still lots of party left. So of course he starts to not like sober up, but he gets to the point where he's okay. And he like has like another drink or two. And then of course I start drinking because like that's the point of an after party. And I just remember at one point I kissed him on the forehead. And then all of you will ask, because you used to joke, you used to ship us. We're both straight men, by the way. I know that broke some of your hearts to hear that. But I kissed him on the forehead when I left and said goodnight. I know that you're all very upset. So I know, dreams crushed. I'm so sorry. This is you can cap a pride in the chat if you really want, by the way. You can cap a pride in the chat. I got to meet his family in Japan. Well, his mother and his sister. I'd always wanted to. He always spoke so highly of his mother and his sister and his stepdad. And in fact, he kept telling me repeatedly that I'd like his sister more than him. You know, you'd probably get along with my sister a lot better than me. I'd always say, why? Is it because she's not a piece of shit? Well, she's pretty much everything I'm not. She's outgoing. She's funny. I think he called her normal once, which implies that he didn't think he was normal. I always wanted to meet his family. Always. I know how much they meant to him, and, you know, he revered his mother. He would always talk about how smart and how strong and, you know, just, I don't know. It was like, he was like in awe of her and his sister. And, you know, I don't know how well he knew his stepdad, but I can tell you that I've coordinated with his stepdad for most of this. And that man is just an unbelievably beautiful man. And it is no surprise from, you know, his sister, his mother, and his stepdad, none in any particular order, by the way. It is no surprise that he was the loving, caring person that he was if they all had a hand in helping him grow up. And you all got to watch him grow up. You got to spend 5 years with Kix in what would often be uncomfortably intimate moments where he would overshare with all of you. But you got to know him really well. And I think it's time that you got to know his mother a little bit better as well. And she and I have spoken, and she asked if she could come on here to talk to all of you. And you thought hearing me talk was going to be hard. So I'm going to call his mother Carol, and I'm going to have her talk to all of you. And I'm sorry, because I know for those of you that have already had a hard time with this, it's probably only going to get harder. So I feel that what I can say pales so much in comparison to what she can. So Hello?
I can hear. Here we go.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear the stream in the background. I don't know if it's on.
Yeah, I muted it.
Okay. Um, the stream can hear you uh as well. So I'm sorry that I took longer than I was planning to.
Yeah, that's okay. Not
Um,
worried.
I I just I wanted I mean I wanted to say to you in public that it was getting to meet you in Japan after all he had said about you was an incredible treat, and I would have loved to have met you again under very different circumstances. But I just want to say, as shit as this has been, and I know that you're going through it way worse than any of us, that it is absurd how comforting you have been to me despite the grief. And I think that, you know, both you and Thomas have been unbelievable. And I just wanted to say thanks.
Back at you. I mean, we've um so you actually got the news before I did. The police had called and left a message at 5:30, but because it came in as an unknown caller, I didn't see it. Really, I didn't pay attention. And I didn't find out till Tuesday morning, probably like 11 in the morning when somebody was at the door. The dog was barking uncontrollably. I opened it up and there's two officers, and it's like, oh, he crashed. I know he crashed. We knew he hadn't come home that night. And then I looked at the officer's badge and saw one of them said coroner. And that was the oh fuck. And I just stood there and stared him in the eye until he said what he came to say. And you were like one of the first people that we knew we needed to contact. That's like Parker needs to know. And it meant so much to us that we could rely on you to handle things the way that you have. And I understand that it was a lot to ask. But it always felt so bad when you said it was your dad's birthday and that we had interrupted that.
I think he understood. Don't worry. I appreciate I said on stream that the first thing that Thomas said was, you know, is there family around? Do you have a support network there for you? And I just wanted to yell at him and be like, don't console me, man. Like I already knew what was coming. Like I was like, there's no way you're thinking of me first. Like this, no. So
when Michael was in Poland with you guys, we only were able to follow what he was doing by looking at Twitch, by looking at Twitter, um, by looking at Instagram, which Marcella took care of. I mean,
she
we
forced
did
him to
not.
make an account.
She forced him to make an account, and I bless her for it because that's how we. I have photos. I have been saving photos and taking screenshots because he did not share these things. You know, this was he compartmentalized so much. And I know this is something I spoke with my sister yesterday, and we talked about our dad who passed away several years ago, and how dad was not demonstrative. Um, I come from a very calm, non-demonstrative Eastern European lineage of people who were not into hugs.
Yeah.
Um, my mother's family are big huggers, but my father's family was completely closed off that way. So Michael's behavior was frustrating, but for me, not unusual. It's what I grew up with. And there were times that his sister and I would have to stop him when he was young and say, use your words, because he just wanted to punch things. He'd be angry and upset and frustrated. He wanted to punch things, and he wouldn't punch people, but there was a thing he used to do when he was in grade school where I would hold my hand up and he would hit my hand because that was a designated. We agreed he could do that. When he was really angry, he would punch my hand until I said, okay, I'm done. That hurts. And then he would stop. And it's like, can you use your words now and tell us what's upsetting you? He felt everything. He was so incredibly sensitive to every every person around him. And he had to block it off to protect himself. So I think for people who would feel like he wasn't there, it's partly because he just had to mentally shield himself from feeling everybody's emotions all the time. And the story you told about when he didn't seem very appreciative about the gentleman who donated so he could build his computer. He appreciated it. He truly did. But and I see this in my family, I see it myself, I see it in a lot of us. We do not necessarily show the gratitude at the appropriate moment. He grew up, we did not do holidays, we didn't do birthdays because I have a very sketchy concept of time, which you may be familiar from him.
Yeah, he didn't ever know what time it was or where it was or what day it was. And the amount of
Yeah,
messages, like just quickly scrolling through and just the amount of do we work today? And I was like, we have worked the same days for 4 years, Michael. Of course we work today.
yeah, we don't pay extreme attention to time, and yet I will look up and know the exact minute on a clock without thinking about it. But the rest of the time, it's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
But we gave gifts when we found a gift that was appropriate. My daughter still does this. She'll bring me like, I found this. Happy birthday. It's like, well, my birthday's not for 4 months, but yes, thank you. This is perfect. Um,
He did that too, by the
he,
way. He would
yeah,
he would find random things and we would be like hanging out in Poland or we'd go somewhere and he'd be like, "Oh, I have something for you." And I'd be
yeah,
like, "What do you mean you have something for me?" And he'd just give me something. He's like,
yeah.
we were talking about like audio converters and I got like this really good like DAC for my PC and it was so good I bought a second and I want you to have it. And I looked online and I was like trying to find like what it was when he was telling me about it. And then I said, "Did you spend a lot of money on this?" And he's like, "Yeah, it was like $400." And I was like, "Excuse me? Like you just," and he wouldn't bat an eye. And he'd be like, "I think you'll like it." And that was it. And that was enough justification for him.
Yeah, yeah. And he did that. The first thing he bought me when he went pro, and he did that first tournament, and they came in, I guess, what was it, second?
Orbit?
Um,
I,
yeah,
I
with
actually,
Orbit.
I actually don't remember where he finished.
Yeah, the
I think he was
team,
in the finals, but they lost, if I remember.
yeah, they were in the finals, but they lost. But he won a little bit of cash, and he came home and he said, "I bought you a blender." Because he grew up with me making him smoothies for breakfast and stuff like that. And our old blender was not cutting it. He's like, "I bought you a secondhand Vitamix." I'm like, you're awesome. I appreciate that.
The smoothie thing, by the way, stuck around. He found
Yeah.
this place in Poland when we found out that we would be in Poland for longer than was anticipated. He went out of his way to try and find companies that had pre-made stuff and would send it to him. And he found this company that could like pre-send smoothies, and he would tell me about them.
Yeah.
I don't remember how long it lasted for, but he liked it very much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And during lockdown, he took up cooking.
yep.
Um, he didn't want me to teach him because both of my children have told me that I'm a terrible teacher. And therefore, they didn't want me to educate them on things like teaching and stuff that I do. So he subscribed to one of those sort of chef in a box type programs. He did Home Chef during lockdown. And then he wouldn't do them alone. He's like, I need you to walk me through this. So it's like, I'm not teaching you. I'm just the bumpers, so you don't fall off and do something wrong here. But he had these, these pre-portioned meals and recipe cards, and he felt so proud of himself that he cooked this, and then of course left all the dirty dishes for me.
He sent me a photo of the first one, and I
Yeah.
told him it looked terrible.
It tasted great.
Did it? I said to him, I was like, I don't know how it tastes, but I was like, you really got to up your level of plating. And he's like, this is like the first thing that I've ever seriously made. He's like, back off.
Yeah.
I was like,
No,
I'm
he
just
was
letting you
very
know.
proud.
I was like, I just got to let you know. And I mean, when I got diagnosed as diabetic, he made a joke like immediately about it. And that's just and I wasn't even mad. I just laughed at it. And it's like, that was just the way that he did things. And, you know, he just
And
took
he
it.
was very worried. He was very worried about you. We talked about things like whether or not you guys were going to move down here.
Yeah.
And it was the concern of your health.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure you were going to be okay
Which,
because
for the
everything was
record,
so
he never
uncertain.
relayed that to me. So if
You know,
if he had those concerns, I never
yeah,
heard about them.
this is another thing my sister and I talked about that my dad did, and I divorced Michael's bio dad when he was 9 months,
Mhm.
and we moved back to the U.S. from living overseas. So we lived with my parents for about 2 years, and my dad was retired at the time, and his thing was to I would plop Michael down in the living room with my dad. My dad would be sitting at the computer, sitting at the computer,
Mhm.
and he turned on Sesame Street. And Michael would shove me out the door. 2 years old, this kid would shove me out the door, like, go away. He wouldn't say anything. He was silent. Just shove me out the door to go to work so he could sit down with Grandpa and watch Sesame Street.
Aw.
Um, and my dad would not tell a person what he thought of that person to their face. So, like my sister said, I was seeking my dad. I was seeking dad's affection and approval. And I said, well, so was I, because he always told me you were great. And she said, well, he never said that to me. And I thought, yeah, this is a family trait. This is multi-generational. I've done it with my kids, unfortunately, because I know my daughter really wanted that recognition. I'm a good kid, and I couldn't say it to her face, but I told everybody how proud I was of her artwork and her, whatever, being a good student. But with Michael, that brutal honesty. I mean, he was brutally honest in a lot of things, and it's not that false honesty. Well, I say what I'm thinking. It was the I am telling you the truth, and it's not going to be what you want to hear. And he did that a lot. And um, I was teaching a Zoom class last weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was Zooming, and I had asked him for tech support to help set up my camera and equipment
Mhm.
because I copied the camera that setup that you guys have, I think,
Right.
that you were supplied by the company. I'm like, I like this. How do I do this? And he said, well, we took pictures of all the equipment, and I just and he helped me set it up. He, bolted it to the table, and he made sure everything was where it needed to be, and set me up on so I'd have two screens. And I taught my class, and he asked me how I felt after my classes, and he said I heard a lot of dead air. And from the next room, he's telling me I heard some dead air, Mom. And I said, well, that's me. I'm teaching sewing. We're hand sewing. These are older women. They are asking me questions. It's not a silent chat.
Oh
And
my
and
God.
sometimes I'm silent because we're head down and we're sewing. And he said, well, how did you feel on the stream? I said, that's the lowest energy I've had this weekend. The whole weekend, just I felt so bad
Mhm.
that weekend. And he said, well, you have to bring the energy to the stream. The stream will not bring it to you. You have to be the one to bring it, because then the stream will feed off your energy, and they will feel better, and that'll make you feel better. So that was his secret sauce. Make the people around you feel uplifted, because that emotional rising tide will lift many, many boats. Not all of them, because some people just want to feel like shit. So
Yeah.
you can't fix that.
So, are you going to become a streamer now, since that you've been given
Um,
golden advice?
it's like I've talked with you. I've joked that I do get paid to talk, but
Yeah.
in much shorter bursts and about different subjects. I was actually working on. I have a Twitch stream under Kimono Momo, which some people have found my Instagram, and
I
I
found your
do
Instagram very
appreciate.
fast.
I kind of appreciate the people, because I did see it on Reddit that some people had shared when they were saying it was a crash, and people were saying, "How do you know?" And they're like, "Well, his mom said so," because I had posted that to tell people we weren't going. The two biggest quilt shows, because we work in the quilt industry, the two biggest quilt shows of the year had finally reopened, one in California, one in Houston, Texas. And we had to let people know literally the day before one of those shows opened that we would not be there. And it's like, that was going to be a big chunk of our income for the year. And my husband and I looked at each other, was like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
We're not doing this. We cannot. We canceled everything. The shows are very understanding, canceling Airbnbs and airlines and hotels. And this is stuff that we've been doing for the last 5 years. Like Kix would be on the road, you guys would be doing shows. Like one time he said, "Oh, I'm going to Benelux," and I'm like, "What the fuck is Benelux?" Because we don't study world geography in California. And so I'm looking things up and realizing that very often you guys were doing events the same time I was on the road. So I'd be logging in from hotels to watch streams and catch the clips. Oh my God. Okay, that was one of the stories I wanted to tell you about. We bought our minivan, first minivan I'd ever owned in 2016. And we found that we could, with Bluetooth, listen to you guys. No, it was not listen to you guys, because I don't know if you weren't there yet, were you? No, because 2016 you weren't
I
there
never
yet.
worked Benelux either, by the way.
No, oh,
Yeah. I never
well, yeah,
worked
that's
Benelux, and I always make jokes about it because he would go on his own, and I'd always say that I wanted to come, and he'd be like, "So come," and I'm like, "No, you go do it."
But my husband and I were driving to a show in Michigan from California. We're driving across a mountain range, it must have been the Sierra range, and listening to him play because he was still playing. And I could listen to him live in my van, and I was like, "Technology, yes!" It was awesome because I was so proud, so immensely proud.
He
And
sorry, no,
yeah,
continue. Sorry.
but just to be able, because he did not really check in with us a lot because he was trying to live his life. He was trying
Yeah.
to go out and do some adulting. And that we were able to follow him. And like you, I haven't been able to watch like the clips of you guys being so funny. And I will watch those someday, but I can't right now
It's too
because
hard.
it's the laugh crying, and it does get ugly, and there's only so many tissues in the house
Yeah.
that yeah. Yeah. But as for like, am I going to be streaming? Yeah, I am, and it's not going to be game related. It's not. I don't even know if it's going to be song related necessarily. I've been working on writing again because when Kix was younger, I used to work for a magazine, and I talked about him in the car recently. He's like, "Mom, just publish your damn book. You want to." My mother on her fucking deathbed in 2008 said, "When are you going to get published?" And I said, "I will, Mom, I will." And I sold my first article a couple months later. But with Michael, he finally said to me about 2 weeks ago, we were driving in his car, or maybe it was my car, I can't remember which, but he said, "I want to read your manuscript because nobody is going to critique it as well as I would, because I will be brutally honest with you about everything." And I said, "I know that, and I appreciate that about you, and it won't hurt." And I'm really going to miss that opportunity because I know he would have made it shine. He would have been able to take edits and say, "This is what you need to change," because he was always coaching me.
Well, I mean, he tore your first Zoom call to shreds.
Oh, that wasn't my first Zoom call.
That wasn't even your
That was
first.
Oh, fuck no. That was just the most recent. I mean, that was just like that was a week ago. That was a week ago. Just say, I heard dead air. Like, dude, we don't work in the same industry. We don't work in the same field.
Some of my mods have been sharing your Twitch link. Just to confirm that the name of your account is KIMONOMOMO. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me make sure because it should be one that was established not recently. It was
Okay.
established. No, I don't want to look up.
Do you mind if I share your Instagram with them as well? He said that it is sewing on it, so then it would be yours.
Yeah. It's all sewing. This is why I was able to be there in Japan with you guys.
Right. Yeah. He said that you went to Japan frequently for work.
Yeah, I was in Japan for the last several years, 1 to 3 times a year. And in 2019, it was 3 times because that third time we went to Disneyland. I never was able to afford to take my kids to Disneyland. I downplayed it. Like Disneyland, I went to Disneyland in the 70s and 80s when I was little, and I didn't like it because it was so much noise and too many people. And then for Michael to walk us to the gate and buy all of us weekend pass to Disney Sea and Disneyland in Japan. Like, holy fuck. And it was his nephew's birthday, his nephew's third birthday. And these were family things I could not share with my kids, but my kids were able to, he was able to step up and provide that for his sister, for his nephew, for me. And like, fuck, I made this kid and he did these things and what? And to see you guys, to sit in the green room. I think I took a picture of him in the green room at the Tokyo, not the Tokyo, Aichi show.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching the stream on this TV screen in this little tiny room with all these couches, and his nephew is asleep on the floor underneath a coffee table. And then he's like, oh, I got to get up. And he goes out there and then he's streaming. So to see him 1 minute in this room and then the next minute I'm seeing him on the TV screen, and like, so proud, so amazed. You guys were so hardworking and you just made it look like a ton of fun.
I will tell you this much, that I like casting plenty, but I never liked it as much as when I was with him. Ever. Mm-hmm. He made it. There were times where casting with him was, especially the beginning, extremely frustrating because he emerged from his most recent casting duo with some pretty bad habits that we kind of had to help. Milos was actually really great for this. That Milos had to kind of like work him through. And, casting is, neither of us were trained. Right? Like we don't have any like proper educational background on broadcasting. So we were just kind of cobbling it together, getting feedback here and there. And there were long periods of time where all we had were each other. And, there's nobody that I would have wanted to do that with and learn the industry and the ins and outs with than him. And, I remember when he was thinking about leaving to move back to America in the summer of 2018, when he got that job opportunity and he was going to potentially stop casting. I sincerely wondered if I wanted to keep going, because he made the job what it was, not the job itself, not the teams, not the work environment. He made it what it was. And, it's just, I said on stream earlier, it's like I've been too busy missing him as a friend to really consider the career implications of it. And that, I know that's going to come, and I know that that's not something I want to deal with now, right? So meeting you in Japan was amazing. My mother and I have a very, very, I don't know how to describe it. We talk all the time. I love her to death, and she likes talking about as much as I do, so it's a bad mix. Well, I mean, that's actually a great mix, and he would constantly, he'd say like, oh, let's go out for drinks. Where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm just on the phone with my mom, or, oh, I'm just on the phone with my dad. And he would say like, I don't understand why, like how you talk to your parents so much. He's like, I don't, is that bad? And I'm like, and I'd say like, no. And I was like, when was the last time you talked to your mom? And he's like, I don't know, 3 months ago. And I'm like, you have not talked to your mom in 3 months. And he's like, yeah, why? And I was like, don't you want to know how she's doing? And he's like, oh, she's all right. And when he moved home, when we were talking about where we were going to go, because there was a period of time where we were certain we were going to stay in Europe and work on the EUL. And then, COVID and then changes like in mostly my life is what kind of nudged us towards North America. And slowly but surely, whenever we talked about it, he started injecting spending time with you folks more and more. At first it was like, I joked and I said like, he was so like focused on like eating American burgers for some reason. I don't know why, but he always would bring it up being like, I get to eat like American burgers and get like takeout. And I'm like, that's not a good thing. I don't know why you're excited for that, but okay. And then he'd say, I get to be, he's like, I get to be able to like settle down, maybe buy a house, like explore. And then slowly but surely he started saying, I get to spend time with my family. I get to spend time with my mom, and he just kept in that, just that part of it slowly became a bigger and bigger reason to go home. And I've spoken to him, you know, a number of times since he's been home, and he has expressed on many occasions how being able to like basically revisit his relationship with both of you being at the house has been one of the best parts of this decision.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that when he landed, here's the timeline to put things in a little bizarre perspective. I was in Japan February 2020. Oh no, backstep. We had just done a large trade show in California. The day after the show closed, I had to go to the airport, catch a flight to Japan. I was in Japan for 2 weeks. Came back in the beginning of March. Kix's sister had just moved out the month before. And then a week after I got home, he called and he said, we just heard the border's closing. I'm coming home right now. So I helped him organize that. We made sure he had tickets and everything, and he flew home. So like he was here in 24 hours with his suitcase. He'd brought some of his recording equipment, but not a lot of clothes. And he had to rebuild. He went through the whole new computer build and settling in. And there was a lot to go through. I mean, I met his stepdad when he was 14.
Yep.
And he pushed hard against this new guy who was an authority figure in his life. Like, fuck you, you can't tell me what to do. And Thomas stood up and said, don't talk to me that way in my house. Don't talk to your mother that way. I'm not going to stand for you talking to your mother the way you talk to her. Because he didn't give a shit. But the more he pushed against Thomas and the more Thomas didn't budge, gradually over the years, they came to an understanding. And like Michael, when he went to his first tournament, he didn't have the right keyboard to take with him. And it was the one he wanted was like $250. And Thomas said, I will buy you that. And Michael just looked at him like, what? You know, this mean guy who tells me I have to be quiet after 10 p.m. and I can't make noise? This school teacher? And Thomas gave him that keyboard. Not only that, but we showed up for, I don't know if it was that first flight, it may have been the second tournament he flew out to Poland for. I dropped him off at the airport and I said, check your bags right now before I leave. Make sure you have everything you need. Do you have your tickets? You got this, you got that, you got your phone, you got your passport? No. And I called Thomas and I said, we left the passport at home. And he's like, I got it. I will be there within an hour.
You don't live near the airport, assuming that you fly to SFO.
Yeah, we don't live near SFO.
You are not near SFO.
No. Thomas had just gotten off work and he found the passport. He drove out there. We waited for him. And he made sure Michael would get on that flight. And Michael's like, holy shit, this guy cares. And when he moved back, it was, it was just the three of us and the cat. And the house was quiet, but we bought meals together. We did the grocery shopping. We compiled lists together. We lived as housemates, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
He still didn't do his dishes, but he joked several times about the house elf. What a great house elf we have that cleans up all my dishes. And I'm looking at him in the eye like, you fucking asshole. And he's smiling. He's talking about the house elf. It's like, wow, Mom, this is a great house.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking, I'd never met Thomas before, and I didn't really know him all that well until this, kind of brought us together. But I remember he would make comments about like, because he's been away for so long and he was, you met in his like formative years, he didn't really know Thomas that well. He said like, I know him, but he's like, I've never really had a chance to like really get to know him. And I remember it was not shortly after moving home, but it was probably the fall of 2020, if I remember correctly. So he'd been home for about 6 months, somewhere in that window. Mm-hmm. And I just said like, how has it been? And he's been like, it's been really good getting to know my parents again.
Yeah.
And the fact that
Yeah.
he actually said those words, knowing how hard that is for him to say things like that, I was like, it must have meant a lot, you know? So,
He spent time with family. We used to go to family events with my family and with my husband's family because they were all in California, and he didn't want to go. He's like, I don't feel uncomfortable. I don't want to stream. I want to do something else. When he was younger,
hmm,
before Poland, it's like, I don't want to deal with this. Can I stay home? And I knew I could always trust him home alone. He'd be fine. So a lot of times I let him stay home. 10 years ago, I was still grieving the death of my parents and my brother because they'd all died within a year. And I just met this wonderful guy and I was trying to get to know his family, but I was still dealing with a lot of trauma and PTSD. And I let my kids opt out. And then just this year, Michael started doing things with my husband's family. And they're coming to visit today, and I'm excited about that because they had just gotten, oh my God, I got to share this with you. Okay, so my husband's side, he's got two nieces and two nieces and a daughter. And Michael and his stepsister had gotten to know each other a lot over this time because we would set up a weekly dinner. I think it was his idea. I don't remember. It's like we got to have Lauren over every week. We have to be a family. And sometimes he'd cook. He was so excited to show off. I can cook. And so Lauren would be here, and it was great because the four of us could sit down and have a bottle of wine together and a great meal. And it was so calming and so bonding. So she's utterly crushed right now. But her cousins had invited Michael to go wine tasting with them recently. And because it's one of the cousins' birthdays. And Michael went with them. So the story that I had just learned a couple of days ago was that at some point during this wine tasting, Michael had wandered off, I think, to get something from his car, and there was a bachelorette party nearby. And of course, they saw his hair. So
it's hard to
he
miss.
shows up. Yes, he shows up a little bit later with a sash saying like "bride to be" or something, and they had braided his hair, and he was like, "It's all good." He let people goof with him in a way that he hadn't felt comfortable doing before. And I know it's partly because you guys were getting him to bend without breaking. He bent so brittle for so long. And to get him to soften up in a way around men, because he didn't trust men. So he was seeing men show a soft side, to be funny, to look out for each other, because you guys looked out for each other. You could say stupid shit but still say I love you, you know? And he did not have that growing up. He did not see that growing up. My dad sure as hell wouldn't have shown it to him, but to see that and the stability he got from his stepdad to the stability he got from you guys, that warmth of masculine caring is very important, and he knew that. It's not about being macho and being the strongest, the toughest, the whatever. It's about being able to bend without breaking and to show that inner softness to people that you can tell them you love them and you tell them they are important in different meaningful ways. It was immensely powerful,
We
really important.
we did not tolerate his shit. When we Milos and I are, I mean, Milos is starting to get buff now, but there's no way you can look at either of us and think that we're like the pinnacle of like masculinity, right? So I mean, I'm wearing a turtleneck right now, for crying out loud. So we would fist bump and we would give hugs, and towards the tail end, not even the tail end, like 2019 onwards, like became very, very comfortable, telling him how much I care about him, and the whole relocating out of Poland saga, and certain people who worked for certain companies making it needlessly challenging really brought us together. And I remember I shed I'm not a crier. I shed a single tear. We used to live near this massive park in Poland. I'm sure he probably sent you photos of it or talked to you about it. And
Yes, yes.
we would go there quite frequently for walks. Milos loved going there because he was playing Pokemon Go at the time, and there was like an abundance of Pokemon, so there was any excuse to get him out of the house. But it was coming towards the tail end of our time in Poland, and it had just snowed, and we went for a walk, and we were talking about whether we want to go. Do we want to go to Paris? Do we want to go to Vegas? And he still wasn't fully up there with sharing his feelings and all that at this point, but he goes, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm kind of scared. And I said, why? And he goes, I just don't think that a lot of people like me as a person. He goes, I think I'm a good caster, but I'm worried that they're not going to want me because they don't like me as a person. And this had been based on, like I said, that certain individual depriving him of there were a couple events that Kix did not work specifically because a certain person had a personal vendetta against him. And Kix had, been expressing some concerns, and I said to him, I said, well, I don't think you should be scared because no matter what happens, my only priority is that we stay together. You shouldn't be scared. And he goes, to be honest, he goes, I'm going to lean on you. He's like, I trust you to help me and to get me through this, and let me know if you can't. And I said, that's not possible. I said, if we have to go cast a mobile game in the middle of the wilderness to stay together as a casting duo, we will. And then he said, love you, and he hugged me. And I shed a single tear, and that was it. And then we kept walking. And it's just like that was like our, that whole, as terrible as that whole period of time was from a work perspective, it really, really brought us together as people. And nothing like the fear of being split apart and your career coming to an end than to bring you together, right, and bond over that. Mm-hmm. So, and when he never fought, I would say, like, I'd say I think we should do Paris today, and be like, okay. And then like a week later, I'd be like, I thought about it more, and I think we should move back to North America. And he'd be like, okay. Never fought it. And he said, I will sort it out wherever you want to go. And I said, well, I'll sort it out wherever you want to go. And he goes, I don't really have a preference. So, and that was like,
yeah,
that moment and that walk will always, I will never forget that.
Yeah. I think I remember him talking about that a little bit. I know who you're talking about,
mm-hmm.
because he mentioned how that was affecting his decisions. It was he, I think, felt that he was super flexible in all things. Therefore, he was going to flex with whatever he decided, because he grew up moving so often that it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you've got high speed internet and all that, he'd be fine.
He literally said that. He's like, as long as I can stream, I'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, I mean, we had Wi-Fi when he moved in, because I have an online business, and we just needed enough to be able to conduct business. And every now and then it would go out. It would be kind of spotty, and I'm like, oh gosh darn it. And he's like, oh fuck that, no, I need to be hardwired. So he paid more for his own internet to be hardwired. And when our internet company kind of fucked up, and we were able to cancel that and just rely on his hardwire into the house. It's like, oh, this is great. Michael's internet's way better. There's only one room in the house it doesn't work in, but it's we were talking about this, like, what do we do about things Like the fucking internet. I'm sorry. I'm rambling now because I'm just like I'm looking around the room and
You think
trying.
the hour before I called you I was making any sense? You don't need to apologize for that. Not at all.
Yeah, I think I was more caffeinated than you. And you know, I'm not a morning person.
Neither am I.
I Kix would come into my writing room because once the kids move out, you get to take over other rooms of the house.
It's the rules.
It's the rules. And like
Yeah.
during lockdown when he was here, he came into my writing room once at like 3 a.m. and he's like, "Mother, why are you awake? Go to bed."
Which is a question that we asked him frequently, by the way.
Yeah, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And like, I'm writing. I got like a whole chapter written. I'm feeling great. He's like, "Go to sleep. You're tired." And I'm like, fuck, he's right.
I wish
So,
he'd never take his own advice though. He was so stubborn.
well,
He would give you advice and then I'd turn around and be like, I have given you that same advice before.
yes.
And he just wouldn't have an
Oh,
answer.
God. He was able to see the long view, I think. He was able to scope out and see people in all their complexities, but he would not turn that lens on himself. And I think a lot of us don't. I'm like grossly introspective, and he'd tell me, stop, shut up, stop criticizing yourself, and just stop overthinking everything and just do the work that you're doing. And that was great and very helpful. But, he would do the same.
Yeah.
He would do the same. He would, lots of things in there. Brain soup. It's all brain soup.
It hits you weirdly. Like little things. Inside jokes we'd have, like things that we'd talk about, certain alcohols that it's like he didn't really drink. I remember he wasn't a huge drinker and we were I said to him, I was like, well, I mean, we're here and we're awake at weird hours. We might as well like enjoy some like European nightlife. And he's like, I don't really know what alcohol I like. And he's like, oh, I tried this. He tried this one once and it tasted really good. And I was like, okay, what was it? And he's like, I have no idea. And I was like, this is helpful. Ended up, we narrowed it down and it was Malibu. It was like it was the only liquor he could drink at the beginning. So we went to the grocery store and we got a huge bottle of Malibu and he would mix it with like orange juice and he tried mixing it with like Coke and he tried mixing it with a whole bunch of stuff. And it was just so funny sitting there watching him try to drink this with these different mixtures and realizing how bad it tasted in almost everything until we finally put him on like whiskey and rum was what he ended up like settling on. And there's so many times where we'd just go to events and we'd be at an after party and he'd be like, I want to drink, but I don't know what to drink. And I'd say, do you want me to just get you something? And just start trying things. And he'd be like, yep. And it was just and like little things like that. There's like certain liquors and certain things that we've talked about where it's just like, I think about it or I see it. And I'm just like, your first thought, for no reason, your first thought just jumps to him. Even though, prior to this week, I could look at a bottle of Malibu and not think of a single thing. And now it's like I see it and it's just like I think of him, right?
Oh, well, we would go grocery shopping together and sometimes I'd pay the bill, sometimes he'd pay it. It's like, who's paying this time? Well, you bought dinner last night. I'm buying groceries today.
Yeah.
And he'd say, we live in a communist household. Everybody shares. And he did at one point insist on buying a bottle of Malibu. I don't remember if he drank it or any of it or not, but it's like, oh, I looked at it and went, oh God, why? I did not drink until my 30s. So he did not grow up with any alcohol in the house. It was just a personal choice. And like, I would do the same thing. I would walk into a bar and go like, I have no idea where to begin. What am I supposed to drink? And then I got hooked on Dark and Stormies because that's like a local thing.
Yeah.
And Fernet Branca, because that's also a local thing. And he liked his rum. His stepsister bought him a really nice bottle of rum for his birthday. And we would make cocktails. I'm like, God, I will never be able to drink pina coladas again because we made pina coladas for dinner like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We were having a dinner with his stepsister and we all just felt like we need a beverage. What are we going to drink? We don't have any good wine right now. How about let's make margaritas? And then we ended up with, no, let's make pina coladas, which meant we're all going to grocery stores to pick things up.
Yeah.
And I think he and I went to the grocery store and got ingredients, but like that was just his thing. We had a dinner just week and a half ago. And somebody said, I want ice cream. It may have been Thomas, like, oh, I wish I had some ice cream. And Michael said, I'll go get it. And
Yeah.
it was a dinner with Lauren, and we decided, yeah, it would be nice to have ice cream after dinner. And he just like, oh, I'll go get it. And he just left the house. And I swear to God, he came home 30 seconds after I put dinner on the table. He just walks in the door, and there he is carrying ice cream for everybody. And it was nothing. He's like, well, of course we're going to do these things. Of course we're going to take care of everybody. So to him, it was, yeah, you just do it.
He always wanted everybody to be okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And he would be, I think it's fair to say that he'd want to comfort everybody right now, but he'd also be annoyed with how many people are here, because
yes,
he would be very annoyed.
Yeah, that was a smart call what you said earlier about like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
He would, but he'd also appreciate it.
Yeah. He had a huge impact. And you know what? You obviously deserve the credit for that, right? Like, you raised a hell of a son. You really did.
You.
And it's just like the chat keeps talking about how your mannerisms, your thoughts, your belief system is identical to his in so many ways. And that's why he is who he is, and I hear it too. I can hear it. We haven't spoken a ton, but it's like every time I hear it, I'm just like, yeah, that's it. You just passed it. You passed it right down to him, and he just took it, and he didn't change any of it. He just emulated it 100%.
Well, I know there were days I sat in on his stream. He'd like call me in to answer something, and then I just end up sitting down, and people would be like,
I watched
"Who's
some
that
of
chick
those
sitting on his floor?"
Yeah.
It's like there's only one chair in the room. I'm going to sit on a stool. I really enjoyed interacting with the stream because I'd see questions pop up, and I didn't answer everything, and I'd be looking at the other monitor with a smile on my face, and I realized I'm not looking at the camera. I wasn't engaging, but it's because I kind of had fun seeing the sort of people that were talking with him, and to look at the fan base he has tells me a lot about who he was on screen. I mean, I know who he was face to face. I was out there touching grass every day, and it was like hell to drag him out of his room, but he would every now and then come out and sit in the sun with a dog or a cat, because we got a dog this summer, and he would sit out there with me with one of them, and just sort of, he would greet me as, "Hail, Mother, Destroyer of Worlds." And I'd look up and I'm like,
that sounds about right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and this is hard, but when he left Monday, Thomas and I had been out walking the dog. So we were outside, and he was already in his car getting ready to go. And said, I'm going to go meet somebody and go for a drive, and I'll be out. And he said that a lot. He would go out and meet people, and he would go out for drives. And sometimes he would just say, I'm going to go for a drive. I'll be back late. And so at this point, it was common, but it felt different. And normally I would say, all right, have fun, drive safe, see you later. And this time I didn't. I said, have fun, be good, I love you. And he said, I love you too. So that was our final conversation, which is the best conversation. But even in my head, I knew, you have to say this. You have to say, I love you. I, as a child, stopped saying goodbye because I was afraid that if I said goodbye to people, I'd never see them again. I don't know what triggered that, but that started when I was little. And to be able to say that to him. And, he went out for these drives a lot. He would come out in the morning, well, in the afternoon when he'd get out of bed, he'd show us on a map, this is where I went, and this is what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And talking with my sister yesterday, she said she used to do the same thing. My sister and I have not spoken. We have not spoken most of the last 20, 30 years. We do talk, but very infrequently. And she told me yesterday, sitting at my kitchen table, she's like, I looked at his Twitter stream and I saw the photos he posted, and I knew all those photos because those are places I would go to. So I think intuitively, there's a part of my family that love to drive fast. I am not a part of that. That's not me. I hate it. I got car sick with Michael the last time I was in his car, but she recognized what he was doing as something that she would have done as well. And to know that this was part of who we are in my family, I guess. And so it wasn't surprising that that's how he went. It was not. It's devastating, but it wasn't a surprise. And Thomas and I had lain awake, not awake all night, but we tossed and turned because Michael would always turn off the porch light when he came home. And both of us kept waking up in the middle of the night and looking at that light. And neither one of us said anything, but we knew. We kept looking at it. That light's still on. He's not here. So in the morning, late morning, when they finally showed up, I just kept saying, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. Because when I woke up, Michael and I would always take about an hour and a half to wake up. He and I talked about this. We would just lay in bed and think. I am not a morning person. I will be up when I am, no problem, bright and sharp as a tack, but 8 a.m., not necessarily. And I woke up that morning about 8, and I lay in bed, and in my head, I was having a conversation. You didn't come home. If you were in the car and the car crashed, would it have enough to protect you? And the answer was no. But the answer was also, it's okay. And I overwhelmingly felt that presence of, no, I'm not coming home, and it's okay. I'm okay, but I'm not coming home. So that was hard. That was hard.
I can't even imagine. That amount of like grief and tragedy is just, I don't know. I words completely fail me, and I had that same feeling. I don't get it. I don't believe in superstition. I don't believe in fate. I don't believe any of that stuff. But I get weird messages from, people all the time. Why did I take that message so seriously for some reason?
Yeah.
Like 99% of those messages I just ignore and move on. But that one, for some reason, I needed to answer it. And then, I don't know. One of the last things I said to him, you had such a touching interaction with the last thing that you really said to him. His last stream was about like, vote for me for Color Caster of the Year. And it was like my 49-month resub. And I went into his stream and I said that I voted for Launders instead of him. So we have your loving and touching final message to him. And then there's me being a total sack of shit, and he didn't even acknowledge me. He did later on. That wasn't the very final message I said. I said I was just kidding, and then he said something along the lines of like, "You said you voted for Launders." But that was the way it was that, we joked. And we were shitty to each other, but we never did it deliberately. We did it because we thought it was funny, and because when you care about somebody as deeply as he and I did, and he and other people as well, that's just the kind of relationship you can have. And
I think that's what brothers do.
Yeah, he was. I had always said, oh, you're like a brother to me, and I was wrong, and I didn't really know what that meant until I got to know him better, and. I'm very sorry that you're going through this. And I mean, you've got tens of thousands of people who are here for you, and they're gonna follow your now very professional streams. If just try to make sure you work on your dead air, Carol. You gotta
I gotta practice the dead air. I mean,
you gotta bring the energy for these people. The stream's not gonna bring it.
damn, that's harsh, man. That's harsh. Oh,
But no, the love and support has been the biggest thing. And the one question that I know you don't have an answer to this right now, but the one question that I have been inundated with is there going to be some kind of memorial for him? We want to come. And it's been from people all over the world. And just that reach is staggering. When we had one of our first phone calls, I told you how big his fan base was in Iran. Of all places, he had a huge Persian fan base. Why? We don't know. Just because he was who he was, right? Like, so it's been hard, but I'm hoping now that people, and by the way, the chat is lighting up with people saying they're from Iran at this exact moment. So they're here.
that's great.
They're here. So
great love to the Persian community. I'm really glad. I didn't know that, and I absolutely am thrilled to know that. And we're trying to figure that as a family. We're looking at each other like, well, yeah, we're going to do a memorial. Of course, we're going to do a memorial, but what the fuck?
yeah,
Now
how?
it's like,
Right?
do we do something small, and do we do something big? We want all of you guys to be able to come, and we know that so much of his community, his professional community, is international. His fan base is international, and we're working on it. I'll just say that we're working on it. We're trying to figure stuff out right now, and yeah, definitely, I don't have an answer yet because we just don't know.
I've offered it in private, I'll offer it in public, and I'll offer it as many times as need be. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can.
Oh, we will lean on you. You know that.
I know, I'm ready for it. I'm absolutely ready for it. I said that I would have, if the roles are reversed, should a heaven exist, or hell, depending on where I'm going. If the roles are reversed and my parents had leaned on Michael, I would have loved to have just sat on the sidelines and watch him try to deal with all these people messaging him, because it would have been a sight to see. So there's nobody I would have rather had do it than him, but oh my God, he probably would have just, I don't even know how he would have handled it. I would have been standing there in the nether realm laughing. But
yeah. Oh, he would have delegated a lot of things to a lot of people. I watched him delegate stuff. Like, okay, his sister and his little niece and nephew came over to visit this summer for a couple of weeks in the middle of the summer. And we begged him, please clean the bathroom. They will be sharing a bathroom with you. He's like, I'll get to I don't have time. His sister shows up and she knows him. So she says, oh, I'll do it for you, Michael, but I'm going to charge you $75 an hour. And he said, okay. And he paid her. He paid her on her vacation to clean his bathroom so her children could use it. But between the two of them, she knew, because this is something they did when they were little. And she just knew that would work. And it did. And the bathroom looked fantastic. And most recently, after he passed, and I'm looking at the shower with his hair everywhere and his product. You would not believe how much hair product there was in that bathroom.
I saw his bathroom in Poland. It was for somebody who started off with literally, he used to use Head and Shoulders and that was it. And then slowly but surely, that bathroom began to be overrun with things that he'd find.
Yes. So his stepsister, Lauren, she came in, and I don't think anybody else could have done this. She organized his bedroom. I could not have done it. Absolutely could not. She went in there, organized his bedroom. I could hear her sniffling from the next room over. And she cleaned the bathroom. And just the amount of respect and the strength to be able to do that. because she had gotten to know him so well over the summer as family. And she had to hold it together and do this shit, man. She did it. She really did. I'm very proud of her because I could not do any of that, but needed to be done. She came up, she showed up at the house, is like, what can I do? Because just like her dad, uh, Lauren and Thomas have that thing of this is how you deal with grief is you check into that work ethic and you just plow through the work. You do the fucking work. Thomas right now is downstairs listening to this. Hello, hun, and working. He's keeping our business going. He's packing orders and shipping orders today because our staff people aren't coming in on Sundays. So he's get shit done. And I'm not. My way of dealing with this as somebody who identifies as a writer, I sit and I'm with my thoughts and I am observing and I'm communicating and I'm not doing. You know, I watered the garden 2 days ago. That was doing. I wash the dishes. It's about all I can do. And Thomas and Lauren are like, nope. This is how we will cope. Is making sure the world keeps spinning. You know?
I mean, frankly, I was stunned that you even wanted to do this in the first place. I can't imagine how tough this is for you. Like, I mean, you're coming on here and you're just talking to people and so casually, and it's like I can't. That strength is it's incredible.
It's easier and it's cheaper than therapy. Although I will also be getting therapy at some point. But like I'm looking down on the floor and there's children's coloring books because my grandkids are here, and a dog sleeping under my chair because he's been really, really super protective because he knows something's up.
Yeah.
And we're surrounded by, my God, there are people I've known for years that I wouldn't have considered friends until the last 6 months. I just started talking to them, just like Kix. We were starting to expand our own selves into our communities in a way that he and I had not. And I think we kind of fed off each other in that regard. And there are so many people now who are like, what can I do? How can I help? And it's not just a platitude. They really are helping. And, funerals and weddings bring people together. They just do. Yeah. Hello, dog. Dog jumped into my lap because he knew I was talking. And
Yeah, they always know. Animals always know. You pick up on it right away. Whenever my mom was sad or stressed, the dogs would always know.
So I asked talked about the animals that we have on the stream. He's like, I don't want people to get attached to a pet that may not be there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't post about the pet, they'll be like, what happened? What happened? And people want to know about the animal. And I just don't want to bring that into my stream. That's not fair. Like you look at my Instagram, what do you see? My grandkids. There's my dog. There's my cat. There's people in Japan who know the names of my pets because I interact so much with Japanese artists that they follow me back and they're like, oh, it's Bacon. Because that's a dog. It's Bacon. I like that. I've always lived with animals. Michael grew up with animals and pets, and he grew up. We didn't have a TV when he was little by choice. I did not want a TV because I knew it would destroy my focus.
So that's why he never got any of my references. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah.
You're directly responsible.
Yes, I raised them under a rock. And they did not have. Hey, I mean, you talk about cultural references. I grew up watching old black and white movies and musicals, and I did not understand the cultural references of my own generation because my parents grew up. My dad served in World War II. My parents were old. So I wanted to understand their experience when I was a teenager. So my point of reference was like films of the 1940s and music. I grew up with Sinatra and stuff like that because I listened to what they listened to. And I think Michael also understood that you need to understand not just your own generation, but the generations on either side of you. And he would look at younger generations because they'd be on his stream. He's like, I don't get these kids. Like, dude, you were one of those kids not too long ago.
Yeah. He didn't understand social media culture. He didn't get it. He did it because it was part of the job, often reluctantly. I had to lay it out for him one day, being like, you need to start being more active on social media because it is going to make us more money as a duo. And he's like, really? And I was like, yes, really. There's things that they need. Like, you need to start doing this. You're costing yourself money. And then he went and got a G Fuel partnership. So I guess it worked. So clearly in some way he reached out to it, or they reached out to him. So, but
we have so much G Fuel in the house right now, and everybody's looking at like, what do we do with this? I'm like, well, I guess I should start drinking it. So, it's here. He drank it. And like his birthday cake. Like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah. He said, I've always wanted an ice cream cake. Can we get an ice cream cake this year? Because there's a place in town that does that. Like a family-owned business, not like a chain or anything. And I said, yeah, I'll get you an ice cream cake. Sure. And he said, here's what I want you to put on it. And it's his freaking G Fuel sponsorship. I said, on your birthday cake? He's like, yeah, I think it'll be great. Okay.
It's his birthday and the man's thinking about free content and impressions on Twitter.
Yeah.
He grew up so fast.
It's like, it's a responsibility. I should do this. I got to do a promo for them. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And, you know, he had his favorite flavors, and they'd send new stuff every now and then. He'd be digging through the box like, okay, did they send me this flavor? And do it. Oh, here's a new one. And so it was fun. And, you know, his nephew, when they'd visit, be like, I want some Uncle Michael's stuff. I want to try Uncle Michael's juice. This kid, his nephew, really looked up to Michael so much.
Was that the one that I met in Japan?
Yeah. He was 3 then. He's going to be 5 soon. And Michael bought this massive Star Wars Lego set over the summer while they were visiting. And he's like, I'll do this with you. And that lasted for a day. And then his nephew's like, when are we going to do the Legos again? And Michael would be like, I got to work. I got stuff. I don't know if I can sit down and do Legos. And as it turns out, my grandson is very fortunate that his dad loves Legos and loves Star Wars. So he will be able to do this with his dad. But Uncle Michael sort of like, maybe this is a bigger project than I thought, and had to step away. But that was something my daughter told me that her son said when he was told his Uncle Michael passed. He's like, but who's going to do Legos with me? I'm like, fuck. We'll all do the Legos with you. We'll all do the Legos thing. Michael showed me this huge ass box of Star Wars Legos. I'm looking at like, dude, he's 4. What are you thinking?
Time to learn.
I think that's what he said.
Time to learn. You're 4. You got to start working with Legos. So
yeah.
I've tried to pinpoint what has hit me the most, because I don't think I've processed it all, as I'm sure you haven't either. And I mean, he had plans with everybody. He had plans with Marcella. He had plans with you folks. He had plans with me, you know, for upcoming events, you know, the Sweden Major, the NA Finals, the, you know, SI. We were supposed to be working a Dark Zero thing today. Like, you know, he and I had been looking at every now and then. We hadn't in the last couple months, but we'd been looking at possibly even moving in together in Vegas at one point in time. You know, we'd talked about, you know, we talked about our careers, you know, frankly, like, what happens if this game stops growing? What happens if they shut down the esport? Then what do we do? The idea was that we were going to stay together no matter what. And You know, whether it was jumping to another esport, whether it was possibly trying to get another job in the industry, working for, you know, a publisher or an esport or something along those lines. Like, and it just, I don't know, it hurts so much to know that it was all that promise. Him getting more comfortable, him looking to settle down, you know, really coming out of his shell. You know, finally learning to cook something more than throwing a pizza in his oven.
Oh, and then not turning the oven on.
And then not turning the oven on, or thinking that the only way to make food was to get somebody on the Polish Uber Eats to do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it's crushing. And the thing that's perhaps the thing that's hit me the hardest so far is that I don't wish this on anybody else in our industry, but if this had happened to anybody else, the only person that I would have wanted to talk to about it, and the person that I would have wanted to talk to the most about it, is the one I can't.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's fucked me up the most.
I have the same feeling because it was after my mama died, and Michael had been playing in a friend's house and fell off a skateboard, going downhill fast, right? And then he was going down a skateboard and it wobbled and threw him. And he ended up with some broken bones. And I took him to the emergency room. And then my thought in that moment was, I want to be able to tell my mom that I've got him and it's going to be okay. And that was, I think, when the grief hit me pretty hard that my mom was gone. So same sentiment. It's the person that you want to be, the person that you would turn to in that moment. You can't. But honestly, I have felt every day since that first morning when I woke up, and it felt like he was there. I still feel like he's here a lot of the time. We picked up his stuff from the coroner's office on Friday. I said, I want his watch. I want his goddamn watch. Because I was there with him the day he bought it.
Did he bore you to death talking about watches all the time?
He couldn't, because I loved watches.
Oh.
He's like,
he would tell me about the minutia of watches, and I'm like, Michael, they tell time. Like, I don't know the differences.
I don't wear one. I may start wearing one, but my sister was wearing one when she came over to visit. I wanted his watch because I knew how important it was to him. And it came in a biohazard bag because it had blood on it. And they also had a hair tie that had been on his wrist and his earrings. And I looked at the earrings and I went, I was with him the day he got his ears pierced. Because he couldn't drive yet. I drove him out to get him pierced. I was with him the day he bought that watch. He'd gone in, he was going to buy a Rolex. And then he tried it on. He's like, this doesn't look good. And then he turned around and looked at a different display case. He's like, what's that? And he put it on. It's like, that was magic. That watch was going to be his watch. It was beautiful. There were a lot of things in the last year that I could say I was there, because he's like, anytime he'd say, hey mom, you want to go for a drive? I want to go to Target and get something. I got to go to the grocery store and get something. Or if I said, I'm going to the grocery store, do you want to come with me? And yes, it was always yes. We would go do these things together. And yeah, he would nerd out on things. It's like, well, can you look at my Instagram and it's all about quilting? Have you ever heard me go on ad nauseum about Japanese textiles of the 19th century? No, you have not. But I get paid to do that. And we will nerd. We will seriously nerd. I have shelves. My husband, Thomas, won my heart over when we were still, before we got married. He built me bookshelves in his house. He just kept building bookshelves in his house for me. And I kept adding more books. And he has, I mean, the entire ground floor of our house is a store now because we run our business out of it. And he has been incredibly supportive to do that. But that's what Michael saw, is me with my incredible narrow focus on things and the need to have other people with a wide frame of reference who can support you so you don't go crazy. And I know he's after I got together with his stepdad, he started, I think, and he moved to Poland. He recognized in people like you and Milosha and all of the friends out there, he started to recognize what he saw in my relationship with Thomas, that he needed that from other people too. And he got to be less of an asshole. Let's be honest.
I don't disagree with that last part. But somebody found the picture of him, by the way, at the wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can
Wait,
send it
which
to you.
picture?
The bride to be photo. Oh, the photo's
Oh,
from Thomas. I didn't even realize what account it was. Yeah, it's Thomas posted it.
oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thomas did. I thought, oh my goodness. Yeah, the chat should know that's your husband. I didn't even see who the account was. Somebody just sent me the tweet. I feel
Yeah.
stupid.
No, 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 no. Thomas's comments like my Twitter following just doubled to 6. Nobody should follow me.
Well, you picked up like
Yeah.
1,000 followers on Twitch, by the way, as or so the chat
Ugh.
says. So
I guess I'll have to do something. And that's another question. It's like I don't even know what people would want from me on Twitch. I mean, I'm happy to be that the gamer mom because sometimes people would ask stuff online like I can't talk about this with my mom or whatever, and I'd be able to step up and say, well, here you go, somebody in my 40s and female, I can say this. But it's great to have followers. I don't know what they're looking for, but I'm happy. God, I'm happy to talk and do what you guys do because that's what I do for little old ladies who sew. Let's be honest. I'm already doing it for that crowd, and they're less tech savvy than you guys.
well, there've already been people in here who've asked for links to your family business because they want to support you by purchasing something or recommending it. There have been people who said that they're linking your Etsy store, by the way, now, so that they can buy
Oh
things
my
for you.
God,
Um,
it is so sweet.
people have said that they don't. You said, well, what do they want from me? Anything, just you sewing and talking.
I
Kix
can
would
do
tell
that.
me since he moved home. Kix would tell me that he'd just sit and he'd just listen to you. And he's like, I learned so much. His exact quote one day, we were having coffee in the mall. We were sitting at this, I think it was Costa Coffee in the middle of the mall. It was around winter time. It was cold as hell out. And Poland didn't really get cold, but it was cold. And we were sitting there and we were talking about our families. And it was a different conversation from the one we'd had about how frequently we talked to them. And this was again around the time that we were considering moving back to North America. And he said one of the things that like would be cool would be I'd actually get to like spend more time with them. And he said whenever I do spend time with my mom, he's like I can just sit and like listen. And he's like it doesn't matter about what, I just learned so much from her. And I can say the same. And I think just in the hour and a bit that you've been talking, I think most of chat can say the same as well. So it doesn't matter. I mean, frankly, I don't get why people watch half the people they watch on Twitch, but they do. So I think your content would immediately be more compelling. So it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
And if you need any help or any guidance, and if you actually it's something you want to do, I'm more than happy to spend as much time as need be to walk you through it.
I'd like that actually. I'd like to set something up. I'd be happy to do that because most of the time I'm in my head, like Michael. And I had those conversations with my mother. We would go for drives in the car, and she would talk about architecture and California history, and that's what I learned. So, like on my Instagram, it says I'm on Ohlone land. That's because I knew from my mother. Number one, she taught me about the Japanese internment during World War II because she lived here and she saw it happen to her neighbors as a child.
Mhm.
And a lot of the businesses I work with here in the States, I know people personally who were interred in camps um, on, on U.S. soil, Japanese descendants who are as American as I am, and they were interred during World War II simply because they look Japanese. It's fucked up. But she taught me about that. She taught me about the native populations that lived here in the tribes in the Bay Area and about how the land was used prior to colonization. So I grew up with that awareness, and Michael did too, because his grandmother because she worked with museums, she took him to museums. She took all of us to museums. I grew up going to museums up in the Pacific Northwest and learning about the tribal societies up there. Um, and Michael taught me about history because he was fascinated by World War II. I did not learn about World War II. My father served, but he never talked about it because he didn't want to.
Hmm.
My father was what, 17 or 18 when he joined the Marines and served in the Pacific. And he never understood my fascination with Japan. We could never see eye to eye. And I tell you, I bawled my eyes out through the museum in Hiroshima with friends from Hiroshima. And they're like, we're going to take you. We think you should see this. If you don't want to, that's okay. And I'm like, no, I can do this. I can do this. And that was hard. And you could say, well, it's propaganda. It's like, you know what? Fuck you. Propaganda happened in all directions. There was a fuck ton of propaganda going on in all directions. Innocent people died. That's what matters.
Yeah.
And Michael and I talked like this all the time. There'd be a day when I wouldn't see him for more than 10, 15 minutes, and he'd be in a bad mood because he just woke up. And he and I both knew, do not try to engage the other person in conversation when they've woken up. You've got to wait an hour. So our version of good morning would be, hey, there's tea. If you want tea, there's tea. And that was it. Or do you want me to cook you something? I would say, do you want me to cook you something? He would say, do you want breakfast? Let's order something. But he did these things like, I'm hungry. Can you cook for me? And I'd say, sure. And I'd start cooking and he would finish it. Or like, you couldn't tell him to empty the dishwasher, but if you started emptying the dishwasher, he would finish it. Talking the whole time, he would just move in very smoothly and just segue into doing the thing that you wanted him to do. But as long as you didn't ask him to do it, he'd do it. And I know he got that from me, but he could be so cooperative if you simply made it unimportant to do that thing. But if there was any pressure on him, like when I wrote that statement Tuesday night, Thomas was like, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. And he wasn't pushing. He was being very gentle about it. But he knew that if he didn't remind me, I wouldn't do it. So he would apologize. It's like, I'm sorry. I've got to remind you that this has to get done because Parker needs it in the morning. And I said, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I had to wait till everybody else had left the house. And I could sit down at my computer and write it. And then Thomas came in and checked on me right about the time I finished it. And he looked over my shoulder and he read it through and he's like, it's good.
It was better than good, by the way. It was beautiful.
Thank
I bawled like a little baby.
And like you and I were talking this morning before the chat before this, that both of us had gotten through yesterday without crying.
Yep.
And my sister had talked about it because I pointed out to her, my sister, I said, I'm feeling really, the word that comes to mind is numb.
Yep.
And I said, and she said, grief is not a straight line, it's a spiral. And you will have days where you can get through and days when you can't. I am so glad to have this opportunity to talk with you and to communicate with the chat because, I wanted to do a Twitch stream earlier and Michael's like, nobody's going to watch sewing. I'm like, fuck you. But to be able to to be on his stream and read the chat and people are like, this is the wholesome content that I came here for. I'm like, okay. You all are pretty cheeky and I like it.
I tuned into a couple of those and I did like a double take. I just remember I was sitting at home and I was just flipping through Twitch and I was like, wait, who's with Michael? And I was like, oh my God, that's his mom. And my first thought was, I'm so sorry that she has to read the chat, because he had a reputation for a long time of a very unruly chat that he did not know how to control. And they would just get out of hand. And when I watched, they were so civil to you.
Yes. Yeah. Which I appreciated because he had warned me. He's like, if you're gonna stream, you have to have mods. You're
Yeah.
not gonna manage this yourself. I'm like, oh, okay, good to know. And I saw something, I don't know if it was a response on Twitter or where, but somebody had said, I was one of Michael's mods when he was starting out. And I remember him. And I don't remember what this guy said, but I saw his name. I'm like, I remember you because he had this mod had talked to me. I said, your son's really good at this. And um, he had been very positive and supportive when Michael was what, 17, 18. I remember having a conversation with that particular mod, and it was good to see him again saying, I remember working with Michael. And I'm sorry I can't remember the guy's name, but if he's listening, I remember you, man. I do. I remember people looking out for my kid because some of them would tell me, and Michael would talk about it. You know, this is before he moved to Poland. He would talk about stuff that was going on and how hard he was working and how hard people were helping him and how awful streams could be because you're anonymous. People don't have to see you and they can say whatever the fuck they want. And that bothered him, you know, that ability to be anonymous can be a safe space, but it can also be very destructive
When he
in
was
a lot of ways.
when he was first streaming a ton when I was there,
Mm-hmm.
there'd be days where he'd be like, man, I want to stream. I love streaming. But like there was a period of time towards the end of 2017 where 90% of his Twitch stream was talking about him playing, asking when he'd come back to playing, or some kind of combination of that. And he was telling me, he's like, I'm already struggling with this decision. I already want to go back to playing. And I just can't keep getting asked the same question over and over again. And the same thing with like one of the most asked questions, and it's come up a lot, was his 8-second ace on plane. And he was just like, he had a couple mods.
That.
It was amazing. Yeah. And, you know, he had a couple mods who were great, but the thing is that he wasn't consistent. So he would just be all over the place. He'd stream for 40 minutes, get fed up, and then stop. And then he'd start streaming again like 6 hours later because he couldn't sleep. Or, you know, he'd stream in the middle of the night at random times. And then finally I just said to him, I was like, you need to like hire more mods. You need to bring in people to like clean this up. I was like, because it's very clear that this is wearing on you. Like, you need to put your foot down. And he's like, well, yeah, but like, I don't want to like make them upset. And I'm like, their questions are making you upset. So like, you need to prioritize yourself and start enforcing some rules. And there were a couple, Saint Scratch was one of them. There were a couple people, if I remember, that went over there to help. And all of his mods since he passed have been unbelievable. You know, in the Discord server, they've been talking through things with viewers, with subs. They've set up channels for people to be able to share their opinions and share their stories. And every single one of his mods have just been phenomenal. And, you know, the chat, hilariously, the chat went from, in 2017, a lot of them making him feel unsure about what he wanted, to being the main reason why he streamed. And, you know, we love a comeback story. We love a redemption arc, right? So it's, you know, he was too nice to want to be mean. And that's the thing. The one thing with him is that, yeah, he could be a son of a bitch, but he was never mean. And he'd never go out of his way to be mean. He was always genuine. He was always kind. And he just, I don't know, he always prioritized people above himself, no matter what. Even people he didn't like, he still was never vengeful. Yeah.
Oh God. You know, thinking about, I've talked about his stepsister, Lauren, who's almost the exact same age as Michael's biological sister. And there was a time when Thomas and I were first together that Lauren and I were not getting along well. And it was tough. It was tough for all of us. And Mike would be like, I don't understand what the problem is. She's fine. I don't understand why you guys are fighting. Like, to him, it was sort of like, why would you do that? It's unnecessary. And I don't know if she knows that. I have to tell her. Well, she may be here. I don't know if she's listening, but hey, Lauren, Michael always thought well of you.
I've had real life friends of mine who I didn't even know knew what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Reached out to me over the last 5 days saying that they loved our dynamic. And my first response is always like, I didn't even know you knew what I did or who he was. You know?
I've had, yeah. Yeah. I recently had a friend that I haven't spoken to in a long time, who works in my industry. You know, we're in the same field together. So this is Japanese textile field. And he's actually Japanese. And he said, when I posted that my son had passed, and he responded with like, I won't be able to watch him on stream anymore. And I was like, you watch my kid?
Yep.
But I'd talk to a lot of people in Japan, and I'd show them pictures of you guys, you know, in your suit and tie and your headphones, and like, yeah, the one on the left or whatever, that's my kid. So I've gotten some good support from a lot of communities that you're dynamic. I mean, yeah, Michael was Michael, but the dynamic between the two of you was really something else. It was something, you know, more than the sum of its parts. The whole is more than the sum of its parts.
He meant a lot to everybody. He meant a lot to me. And I'll just keep saying it over and over again. I'm not just grieving one person, I'm grieving 3. And it's just, I know that the next cast without him is going to be, I don't even think there's a word for it. But, you know, if he were to give me any advice, he would call me, his exact words, if I said to him that I was quitting, he would say, don't be a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And I can hear him say it.
Oh, yeah.
That's so stupid. Don't do that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to miss him terribly. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through this. And I'm here to help with the next steps. And if you need anything, and there are thousands of people who will say the same thing if you need anything.
Well, I know next on our list is getting a memorial figured out that's gonna be what it needs to be. And yeah, when I'm ready to actually use my Twitch account, we'll talk to y'all. See if we can get something up, because I know for me having a regular work schedule helps, because I talk about having ADHD. Within the crafting community, a lot of us are adults with ADHD. ADHD. And having a schedule and a focus has helped a lot. So if I do like a scheduled stream or something, that might be helpful.
I'll be there. I know nothing about sewing. My mom crochets. She's probably browsing your Etsy store as we speak. But
well, I don't crochet, so.
I know, but apparently you had like crochet hooks or something like that on your store, or
we're specifically a Japanese import company, so all of our products are imported from Japan, and I know the producers, and we know these companies. A lot of them are family companies, and I spent time in Japan with these people. They taught me to eat food I would never touch sober, but they also know that if you give me enough sake, I will eat weird things. So, and I get loquacious. This actually was a friend of mine who said that this is my friend Chad, who dragged me out of misery when my mother died. He literally dragged me from the house and got me to join a gym, which I'm going to do again, because Michael was trying to do the same thing with me. Mom, just join a fucking gym. So I'm going to use up his gym membership that he paid for, because I know that will help. Michael was working out and getting in really good shape, and he felt great. But sorry, I'm sidetracking. My friend Chad had gotten me out, and I can't remember now where I was going. I'm sorry, totally derailed.
No,
because I'm thinking too many directions.
You don't owe an apology any day, let alone now. You don't need to
But I will
apologize.
tell you, My friend Chad got me to go gym, but also I took up Japanese archery, which is a cross between a martial art and a Zen meditation. And it was the most peaceful thing. I'd have 3 hours of silence shooting at a target in a Buddhist shrine, because that's where our target practice was. And it was the most unbelievably peaceful thing. And my teacher at the time, when I told her, I'd started studying with her after my mother died, when my father died. When I decided my dad. And she just wrapped me in a big hug and she said, I know what you feel like. Because she told me she'd been through the same thing, multiple family deaths in a short amount of time. And we had 3 within a year. And to have a teacher like that who just said, we don't have to talk about it. I already know. Go shoot. And I'm not religious, but I leaned pretty hard into Zen Buddhism for a while because it helped me clear my head with a lot of things.
Well, I don't talk about
And
it all that much, but that's how I identify as well. So I'm sure we can have some conversations offline, and you
absolutely.
will probably have much more experience with that sort of thing than I would. But
Well,
he never told me
unfortunately,
that,
it's
by
in
the once again,
California.
like I've
Yeah.
talked about it with him. Never once did it occur
Yeah.
to him for him to be, oh, my mom was like that too. Never once thought to mention it. Classic Michael.
I don't think I discussed it much with him. Um, I was raised by my father was religious because it was a cultural thing, and my mother was raised by people who asked too many questions, as my dad would say. Um, my mother taught us to ask as many questions about as many things as possible. And anytime I was like interested in studying a different religion, like when I had friends who were Baha'i, and mom's like, "Oh, I did that for a while. I looked into that too," or any version of any church or temple. Um, my mom encouraged it. My dad was like, "Can you pick one?" And I'd like, "No, not really. I need to know how they all function. I need to understand that."
I think your son had that same characteristic. He might not agree with something, but he wanted to know about it. And it's funny because
Yes.
of the two of us, I was always the one who took heat for being political, and then nobody really knew what he felt because he just never,
I did.
he never wanted to talk about it. But it's like, there was a colossal amount of overlap between him and I. And I mean, just even talking to you and hearing the things that he'd say about, your positions and things like that, it's, you very much, gave him the worldview that he has. And one of the things that he always used to message me was something would come up and he'd be like, I want to talk about this. Can we talk about like a political issue or like something? And he's like, I want to talk about it. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd go over to his house. We'd have a drink or two. We'd sit down. We'd watch videos, read articles online. He'd ask a ton of questions and we'd just talk. And it got to the point where he would start sending me political messages and political memes and stuff like that, over the last year or so. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been, and I can speak for only myself here, but I think most of the other people here can probably say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I nowhere near as much as anybody has or you have. I got to watch your son grow up, and I was proud of him when I first met him, and I never stopped being that proud. That pride never disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
and you and Thomas are both just, incredibly beautiful and thoughtful, genuine, compassionate people. And I am still blown away that you both prioritized other people seemingly ahead of yourselves when this first started. And even now, coming on here and, there's 10,000 people that are hearing you grieve and you're helping them. And that strikes me as so selfless and just an incredible kind gesture. And I just wanted to say on behalf of everybody, just thank you. Thank you for raising an incredible son. Thank you for helping everybody today. And, moving forward, if you're going to stream or post anything, I have no doubt that there are lots of people who are going to really, really be thankful of you for that. And I just wanted to say it as well, because it's been an awful 5-6 days, and I couldn't imagine what you're going through, and yet still you put other people in your mind as well.
You have to. When my mother was dying, um, and cancer is a slow and brutal process. I remember the hospice people looking at my sister and I, both my sisters and I, and saying, "We don't usually see families this interactive with a dying parent." And they were surprised, and I thought, "How is that possible?" You know, we were giving her medication, we're bathing her. No, I don't think we did that much though. A lot of hospice people helped, but we there was always someone with her in the room in the 2 weeks we were with her before she passed. And I thought that this is what we were taught. You you can deal with your grief any way that works for you, but one way that really helps is to take care of other people. And that's important because it shares the load, you know? Like knowing that, looking at the stream and like, oh my God, just looking at the chat. And I'm not reading all of it because it's just too damn fast and my eyes are too old. But and yeah, knowing that this many people knew him, that this many people cared about him, that's fantastic. It's fucking um, it really is. Yeah, and this helps me deal with the grief to know that so many people cared
Yep. I
because you know
it sounds fucked up, but I'm if this is going to happen, I'm glad that people are not suffering alone in their grief.
Mhm.
You know, that
Yeah.
very few people have an opportunity to make life better, genuinely better for other people. And your son did that for tens to hundreds of thousands of people. Their lives are richer for having interacted with him, for talking to him, for watching him, for calling him a friend. Even just the amount of messages I've received from people saying, you know, at some point over the last 4 years, they were battling mental health issues, and his honesty and relating to that person, telling them that he was going through similar things, helped them. Or just the
Yeah.
amount of people who have said things like, I went through a terrible, terrible phase in my life, and watching his streams and feeling like I was a part of that community is a key reason why I got out of it.
Mhm.
And your son did that all on his own. And you have
Yeah.
to take credit for that.
Thank you. Mm. I put a lot of credit on his stepdad because and Michael knew it. He was aware of it, that there's a lot I could teach him about philosophy and history and debate and so on and so forth. But Thomas really taught him, you know, how to properly man up and be a responsible human being and show up. If you have a job and people are counting on you, show the fuck up. You don't get to sleep in and say, "Oh, whoops, I overslept. I'm not going into work." You can't do that because he had. And Thomas was the guy who showed up and went to work every day. And Michael saw that and he remarked on it. He told me. He's like, "Well, it's a good thing I got Thomas's work ethic because yours kind of sucked, Mom." Like, I've been self-employed since I was 17. Oh, here's a little funny thing. I wake up every morning and there's a picture on my dresser that one of my sisters gave me because I probably lost my copy somewhere in one of our many moves. But it's a picture of me the day Michael was born. I'm holding him and his big sister, and my mother is there with us in England. She'd come out to England for the birth. And I looked at that picture and I went, oh shit. Because do you know how old I was when Michael was born?
You were very young, were you not?
I was 24. I was living abroad with a toddler, 2-year-old, and an ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband. After Michael was born, I left him because I looked at my kids and I said, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not raising 3 children. I want to raise the 2 I have.
Mhm.
Um, I was his age when I had him. So I look at what I was doing with my life and what he's done with his life in 24 years. It's different.
You can't compare them.
Can't compare them. I wanted to be sooner, but I wanted a family and I wanted my business and I had those things. It was just pulling another adult along with me. It's not.
Yeah.
And now I have a husband who looked at my business and I moved in with him and he said, "That's interesting. What is this?" And here he is 10 years later, basically running my business because he's good at it. And I couldn't have come this far without my husband. Thomas is like, he was there for Michael when Michael needed a dad. And I can take credit for raising Michael a lot of the way, but oh my God, he's carried so much of that load. And Michael knew it. Michael told me he knew that he valued it. So he might not have said it to Tom, but he said it to me. Because that's how we do things. We don't compliment people to their face. For some reason it's hard.
One of the things that he said to me, because he made a post about Thomas building a desk or something. I can't remember what it was. He made some post about it, and I messaged him, or we were in voice chat. I would if we didn't talk so much, I would try to find these messages, but I know trying to sift through our WhatsApp group, even with the search function, is going to be an utter nightmare, just with the volume that we spoke. But I remember we were talking about it because I remember seeing that. It was actually my mom who brought that to my attention. She was like, "Did you see the really touching post that Michael made about his stepdad?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "No." I feel like half the stories about like wholesomeness that would come out of my coworkers, my mother would relay them to me. She's like a wholesome tweet magnet for some reason. She just looks for them and then she finds them and then she tells me about them. And I'm basically tethered to Twitter and they somehow elude my sight. So anyway, he made a tweet about his stepdad. And I remember there was one time, I think we were gaming and I asked him and I was just like, you've never really known him. Because it was something he talked about in Poland. And I said, "What do you like? How's it going? What do you think of him?" And his comment was just, it was so short and so like gruff. He's just like, "He's the nicest fucking guy." And that was the first thing he said. And then we just launched into a conversation about it. And fatherhood is not blood. And I don't know much about Thomas, I can tell you that much, but everything I do know, you both have your fingerprints all over Michael's upbringing. And I'm not here to give praise to who deserves it more. I'm just so glad that you raised him the way that you both did and that he was who he was. Yeah. So I'm going to be wrapping up the stream in a couple minutes. Is there anything that you want to say? I hate to cut this short. It's gone. I didn't think I'd be able to do it for more than 2 hours, but you know what? You have somehow made this surprisingly easy, and adding you to the call made me think it would be much harder. and yet somehow you have made this much easier. So it, I just don't know how you want to wrap up if you have any final thoughts. I don't.
I appreciate the love. I'm really appreciating the love. I appreciate those of you who stepped up and bought stuff because, like I said, we're not doing what we had planned, and that's okay. I will stream at some point. I'd really like to continue interacting with people. I really wanted to be a part of the community because I've been on the periphery of the community for all these years, and I've watched you guys, and I've listened to Michael talk about everybody, including random people that we drove out to San Francisco to bring candy to and things like that. Like I remember this shit. I was there for a lot of it.
I never understood those stories. I saw them now and then, and I was like, "What is he just meeting up with people to like give them food?"
Yes, he would, and I think I must have done stuff like that too, and I still do. He had a very kind and generous heart and a very gruff exterior. But thinking about, like, I talked about my mom passing from cancer and how long and drawn out that was, and then my dad dying of cancer. But Kix knew how traumatic that was. He watched it happen. And I think if we ever somehow choose the moment of our passing, he wanted it to be as quick as possible. And in that, the way he did it was as fast and instantaneous as it could be. I mean, I have been told, and maybe it's just because I'm his mom, I'm told he died on impact. It does seem fair. It does seem true because I know where he was and how things happen generally. And there's some relief in knowing that it's not long drawn out suffering. So there's that. But it's almost like a polite thing. Here, let me do this thing so that you all don't have to get dragged through it. We're going to grieve. You're going to grieve anyway. You have to. And we're doing what we're going to do. I'm really grateful for this time, Parker. I really am. I'm so glad I got to talk on stream and to see all this cool stuff in the chat and to see you.
I appreciate you having the courage and the compassion to come out and do this. Like I said, you could have very easily taken all this time to yourself and nobody would have faulted you or blamed you at all. And I think everybody would have understood. And yet you took time out of your day to come here and talk to a lot of strangers and a lot of friends of his and give them some semblance of closure if possible. And, it's a really remarkable thing, the way this community has come together, and your son is the reason for that, and you are the reason for him. So I appreciate the fact that you came on here. I can't imagine how tough it's been. I can't imagine what the nights and the days and the early mornings have been like since Tuesday. I can't. I know what I'm going through, and I know that is a fraction of what you and Thomas are dealing with right now. And it hurts a lot. And I wish that I could help more. And I know everybody else in here wishes that they could help more as well. And I mean it when I say, and I'm sure everybody else means it when they say, that if there's anything that can be done, whether it be, putting Thomas to work, because he's going to be busy now. He's going to be much busier now that they're all trying to buy out your Etsy store. No matter what it is, just say the word, and it's not even just us. It's not even just us. It's the whole machinery. Ubisoft, yeah. Face It, CSA. I have no doubt that every single person will jump at the opportunity to help. And they want to. I want to.
I do too. I want to be, I got to tell you, I was awed walking into the stadium in Japan, in Aichi, and seeing the very polite Japanese crowd sitting quietly, watching those screens, and then bursting into noise every time there was a massive play. And I couldn't tell what the plays were because they were being announced on the loud on the speakers in Japanese. But holy shit, man, that's amazing! And you guys were like in it, and that's your day job. So please tell people to be in touch if they want to talk with me about anything with that end. I am definitely down for coming to events. I would actually like to attend some events and see you guys.
Well,
and talk to you face to face.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to give you and Thomas a hug. I mean, even before this happened, but I never got to meet Thomas, right? So
not yet. No. We're trying to get him to be able to do some of that stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah. I think all you need to do is say, I want to be here, and you will have a flurry of UB and Face It employees in your DMs tripping over themselves to get you there. So,
yeah.
but I know that there's some things being worked on in the background for your son. I don't know what the final details will be, and I don't know when. I just I am shocked at how quickly everything has happened, the good and the bad. Not that there is much good that's come since Tuesday, I'll say that much, but it's something where, you know, whatever you need, there will be people there for you. And at events, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know when we're going to have people at events. That's right. So I hate that this happened now. Not that there's any good time whatsoever, but
even 6 weeks ago would have been worse. Things
Hmm.
I feel are more open now than they were before, and it's going to keep going. You know, we were very aware of that. Heck, Michael's the one who got me scheduled for our shots.
Yeah,
So he wanted to get back into it. I am so glad you guys got to do Mexico.
you have no idea how much that event means to me now.
And people my age, you know, the grandmas were going like, oh, tell him to be careful. And I'm like, he'll be fine. He's with his folks. He's with his people. He'll be fine. I never worried about any of you guys on that because I knew you all had each other. I
Yeah.
knew you'd all be looking out for each other. And then he like went and had the time of his life. I'm so glad.
He came into my
Really
room
am.
and he sat down on the bed and I was sitting on the couch because even though we were casting next to each other, he wanted to adhere to social distancing. And we had like a 2.5 hour long talk because since February 2020, Mexico was the only time I'd ever seen him.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen him in a year and a half. And Mexico brought us together and we sat there and we talked about the future. We talked about Vegas. We talked about Marcella. We talked about his family. We talked about what he wanted to do. He wanted to go for a drive across the entire United States and camp. There was so much that he wanted to do. And we talked for hours. And then finally, I'm just like, yo, why don't we just play video games? And he's like, okay. And he literally ran back to his room and we played League of Legends together. And the game went terribly. And then we stopped playing. And then we went back to talking because it was so miserable. But, you know, and then I hugged him goodbye because he didn't stay for the after party because he was so excited to go to Cancun.
Mm-hmm.
And I hugged him goodbye and I said, I'll see you soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been rough for everyone. And I really appreciate you saying this. So,
thanks for having me.
thank you for coming
on.
I will keep in touch with you offline. And then if there's, I mean, you now have a platform to share things with. So if there's any updates, I have no problem helping you, but I also will totally take a back seat if you and Thomas want to be the ones to share the news of anything that, like, if there's a memorial or anything like that. I just, like I said, just let me know and just let us know. Right.
I think right now it's a little beyond us in that the scope of the memorial, it's not like doing like we did for my parents. So it's one thing to do a memorial for a person when half their friends are already dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's another to do it for a young person who knows a lot of young people. So
yeah,
we're a little lost in trying to figure out where to begin with that. It may take a while, but I want to say maybe December. I'm not sure. I was thinking November, but I think maybe it's closer to December to be able to do something where we can. And then it's the question of like, do I want to meet that many randos in an afternoon? I don't know. But
and yet you want to come to events, so you're going to have to.
Yeah, but I mean, to put it in perspective, I have lived most of my life going to events. I started off doing Renaissance Fair in my teens. So I went from, you know, from stuff like sci-fi and fantasy conventions, comic book conventions, Renaissance fairs, to working in the freaking quilting industry and doing those events. So my life and Michael's life have been pretty similar as far as we're used to putting on the game face and meeting the crowd and then retreating home and not talking for an hour afterwards.
Yeah, I need to decompress after every event.
Yeah. But it's fun. I like the community aspect of a lot of these things, and I do look forward to meeting a lot of you guys in person to be able to not just be that weird lady in the background who's hanging around Kicks. What's that? You
That was me, by the way. I was the one who'd do that, especially for the first couple events when nobody knew who I was. The amount of people who would come up to Kicks at events and ask me to take the photo of him and them, and I'd just be like, okay.
Oh yeah, no, I know the feeling because when we were in Disneyland after the Japan tournament, after Aichi, we're walking around Japan and some guy walks up and is like, can I take a picture with you? And I'm taking a picture for Michael. And Michael's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Here, Mom, hold the camera. Like, all right, whatever.
There was
This
a
is my
time.
life now.
There was a time where we were doing a signing, and somebody wanted a picture with Kix, and Kix was like, "Oh, Parker, get in here, get in here." And I was like, "No, Michael, they want a photo with you." And Kix turns to the guy and is like, he's like, "Can Interro come in the photo?" And the guy just kind of like made a face like, "I want to say no." And I just sat there and I was like, okay. I was like, I'll just stay on this side. I was like, you can get a photo. It's just, okay, I know.
Yeah.
So, but no, Carol, thank you so much. And please, I mean, Thomas has presumably been watching because he posted the tweet. I'm still embarrassed. I didn't recognize that was his Twitter handle. But yeah, thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
You're welcome. We talked longer than we expected, but I think that's okay. I've been talking to his parents a lot over the last little while. And I mean, I've wanted to help them as much as possible. And as you can hear, you didn't get to hear Thomas speak, just Carol. But they're both just amazing, beautiful people, and I love them both. I'm going to end the stream in just a couple minutes. There's some questions that you guys have been asking for me, and I would be remiss to not answer them. We talked earlier in the stream about how I'd been grieving the loss of a friend and somebody that I considered to be like family. But there is an entirely different and probably more complicated component to that, and it's that I have only ever known one co-caster. He's the man who got me into the business. He's the man who lifted me up for no reason. There were dozens of people I'm sure he probably could have picked from, and yet he chose me. And I don't think I let him down, and I don't want to let him down. The questions that people have been asking are whether or not I'm going to even stick around in terms of casting. And I mean, the answer is right now is frankly, I don't know. I want to say yes, but I don't know what is going to happen when I try to do it again. We got offered Sweden, as I'm sure it will probably not surprise you. The offer came in the morning of Tuesday at roughly the same time that I read the message telling me about his passing. So, I won't be casting either of the remaining NAL play days. I think that's pretty understandable. I'm going to be taking some time off. I want to take time off of, I want to take time off from social media, but I felt like in many ways I had an obligation. I offered to help the family they asked me to help, and I couldn't let them down. And on top of that, and I don't say this, please don't take this as me thinking higher of myself. But I think that my role in this community makes me somewhat of a platform, or gives me somewhat of a platform where I have a responsibility when something happens in Rainbow Six. Doesn't matter who it's with. And I feel like there is a whole community grieving. There are tens of thousands of people who are hurting right now, and regardless of who it is, it doesn't matter if it's Michael or anybody else. I feel like I owe it to all of you to try to help you make sense of it and to be a voice. And it just so happened to be him. So I felt like I owed it to all of you. Because I can control myself. I mean, well, right now, clearly I fucking can't, but I try. But I can't control how any of you are feeling. And I hate that. I hate that I can't fix it. And I hate that I can't make sense of it. You know? And I owe it to everybody. Not just because it's him, and not just because of his connection to me. I owe it to everybody as one of the people who is seen as like a leader in a whole community full of people. And I owe it to all of you, and I owe it to his family. And I will at some point probably take a break from social media. I don't know when. But it's gonna get to me at some point. It hasn't really hit me all that much. I mean, it's hit me. Oh, it's hit me, but not to where I know it can go. And I'm going to, CSA has very kindly offered grief counseling. I think I'm going to take everybody up on that offer. For those of you that are hurting as well, I don't know if it's available to you, but talking to somebody helps. And, you know, talking to family and friends always helps, but talking to a professional helps. And for some of you, this will hurt you, and this will hit you in ways that you don't expect. And if you have the opportunity to do it, I highly, highly recommend you seek out a professional and talk to them, because grief manifests itself in a wide variety of ways. And just like his mother said, it's not a straight line. Yesterday, I felt hollow. Yesterday, I felt like I couldn't feel anything. I was numb. 2 days ago, I literally could not stop crying. Sorrow to despair, and they're both different things. And I strongly encourage you to speak to a professional if possible. As for what I'm doing, I'm not going to be casting the last 2 days of the NA League. They're coming up on this Wednesday and this Friday, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I'll be working the Swedish major. No idea. I don't have anybody to work with, so what am I going to do? So I have to figure that out. But because it's so fucking dumb, because it's not even like I can go and still work it, because I'm not going to cast by myself. So it's far too many times I read about people who were talking about the face or the voice of Siege, or who their favorite caster is. And I know that I was in that conversation, but to me, it was always him. It might not surprise you to hear that I don't like listening to myself. So if I'm listening to a cast, you know who I want to listen to? I want to listen to Kix, and this might not surprise you at all. And you don't need, there have been a couple tweets, and I only want to say this because people seem guilty, and I don't want you to feel guilty. People have been responding saying, sorry, Interro, Kix was always my favorite caster. Don't ever be sorry for that, because he was mine too. And I don't want any of you to feel badly about that. He was. He was the face. He was the voice. He was the ponytail of Rainbow Six. And I don't want you to apologize for choosing. So don't. When he won the Color Commentator of the Year award last year, the first thing he said in his speech was he thanked me. He literally started it off by saying, I wouldn't be here without him. I need to thank him first. And that's not true. Because I am here because of him, not the other way around. And I owe him a debt that I can never repay. So the least I can do is try to live up to that now that I can't do anything else, right? So I don't know what's next. Frankly, I don't. I'm going to tell you right now, 95% certain I'm not quitting. I mean, I can't. I'm still under a contract, and you know, responsibilities. But I can tell you right now that he would want me to, and he would smack the shit out of me if I was to quit. He would be as annoyed as he would be right now with how much you all are showing support for him. If I told him I was quitting, he would be furious. I can't even begin to think about what comes next. I mean, logically, I'm going to have to find somebody else. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know when that's going to be. I urge everybody here, should it happen, I need you to not be rude to them. Because there are going to be a lot of expectations, and there are going to be a lot of pressures, and whoever does that is going to be, they're going to realize what they're walking into. So it could be, I don't know when it could be. I'm not even thinking about it. So I'm going to take some time. I don't know if you'll see me in Sweden. I don't. Part of me doesn't want to be there, but part of me wants to be there just to say something. I've got too much stuff to sort out. And, you know, we were finally starting to stretch our legs, and we were finally starting to be able to cast other esports. We were hoping to keep casting Valorant. We were hoping to, you know, do Sweden and do the NA finals and do SI and then keep on going and then move to Vegas in March, assuming that it comes back, assuming that the next season starts in March like every other season has. I don't know. It is going to be impossibly hard. And like I said in a post on a subreddit, I have no idea how that first cast is going to go until I'm already in it. And at that point, it's way too fucking late. So cast with Flynn, it will be acceptable to be rude to him. Now that's a thought that's going to fester. I don't know what comes next. I don't. And I think that's okay. I'm going to take time. I'm not in a rush. I'm just going to do my own thing. And I want to say thank you, to everybody, because I received over 1,000 messages in the last 72 to 100 hours, which is an incomprehensible amount of people reaching out. It is absurd. And I wanted to say I've read almost all of them, but they keep coming in and I haven't been able to keep on top of them. But they are some of the nicest things that anybody has ever said to me. And none of you needed to do that, and you did that, and I can't thank you enough. And I don't even see that as a reflection on me. I see that as a reflection on him. And I want you to know that, yeah, I'm hurting. I think everybody is. I'm totally broken, but I'll be okay. And I want you to be the same. I want you to be okay as well. So if I didn't respond, I apologize. I don't even think I'd have the time in the next week to get back to every single person. So if you're watching this and you're upset or you're wondering if I've seen it, the answer is more than likely yes. But outside of that, I want you to know that I might not have the ability or the energy to get back to every single message. And I want to say I'm sorry, but I can't thank you enough. So to everybody who's reached out across a wide variety of industries, I've seen people commenting in the chat today who are casters in other esports. It stuns me. It's been a hard week, and it's probably not going to get easier anytime soon. And I understand that. And I'm extremely thankful that I have a support system to help me get through this. And I will miss him, and I love him. And I'm angry. I'm angry and I'm sad and I'm a lot of things. But I don't think there's anything else I have to add. Thank you to everybody who said you've donated to food banks. It means the world to him, and it means the world to his family. His family have said that it means a lot to them that you've been looking at the Etsy page for his mom. People have also been asking, do his parents get his Twitch earnings? As far as I'm aware, his banking information will be passed on to his next of kin. So I have to imagine that they will probably get all of it. Yes, I imagine so. So know that for all of you who have supported him, that it will in some small way get back to them. So I wanted to say thanks. And the outpouring has been incredible. EUCL postponing their show. The Copa Elite Finals postponing as well. I was grieving, and I had way too many messages from people asking if I was okay. And I felt I needed to make a tweet to show you that I was still here and I was still okay. Well, not okay, but. And I just kind of was like, you know what? I want to do a stream and I just want to talk about him. And I didn't really think about it. I just kind of threw it out there into the ether. And next thing you know, the whole community just kind of moved around it. And I feel badly because I wish I'd given people a better heads up. I just wanted to do this for me. Very self-indulgent. And then his mom messaged me and she said that, she was wondering if she could be a part of it because she wanted to thank people. And I said, I'd love that. And I actually had every intentions of calling her the next morning, but I was taking the day off. So I will be saving this VOD. Yes, I will be downloading it. I will be saving it. I'll be highlighting it, so it'll be up here forever. You can come back and you can watch it and you can clip it and you can do whatever you'd like. And I don't know. Maybe I'll try streaming more on my own just to try to get everything out of it. I don't know. I don't know the next steps. So it's meant a lot to me, and I hope it's helped you all. In the meantime, let's go host the Copa Elite Finals and show support for a broader Rainbow Six community. They were kind enough to move in my honor and in Kix's honor. It's not even in my honor, it's in Kix's honor. So let's go. Oh, stop thanking me. Usually I want you to simp, but not today. No, not today. Not allowed. Let's go over to the Rainbow Six channel. It's FaZe versus Team 1. And it's going to a map 3. Do you believe in magic? Team 1 won when we were casting last time. Maybe they'll win again. Who knows? Vote for Kixstar in the esports awards. Obviously, I'm biased. Donate to a local food bank if you have the time. Put his charm on all of your guns. Every single gun. Put his charm on all of it. I will be. And I want to say thanks and take care of yourselves, please. Please take care of yourselves. So go over to their channel. Thank you for everything today. It means so much. And I love you all and I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching.